Li Qianlong was extremely flustered, thinking to himself, he doesn't follow martial ethics and dares to launch a sneak attack. The people below were also stunned, their mouths agape because Hanju's speed was simply too fast. Hanju wasted no time and used the 6 paths of absolute seal, pressing his palm to Wei Yuan's forehead. From the moment he stepped into the void realm, lightning-like divine abilities manifested. This new seal could suppress and kill the enemy's soul, like a trump card. With the body intact but the soul lost, the enemy's knees slammed into the ground, and the moment Hanju released his hand, the enemy fell unconscious. Li Qianlong watched this scene and shouted Elder Wei Yuan, still in shock when he heard Hanju's words, "It's your turn." Hanju controlled the sword's edge, aiming it directly at Li Qianlong's chest. He then raised his hand, flicking his fingers lightly, causing spiritual energy to scatter. They quickly flew toward his body, dissolving the golden core, tearing apart the nascent soul, and severely injuring the enemy's divine soul. Within a few minutes, Hanju had dealt with the 2 strongest opponents. Everyone was stunned by this scene, speechless and unable to react. After a moment, someone hesitantly asked, "Sect leader, should we continue the attack?" The sect leader immediately shouted angrily, "Attack? What nonsense! Are you out of your mind? We came to assist Yuling sect." Then, the person pretended to smile and said, "Looks like Yuling sect doesn't need our help anymore, we'll leave now. Sorry for the disturbance." Seeing the team fleeing in a hurry, Hanju thought, fortunately, the 19 sects didn't go all out. If they were all killed, Yuling sect would become the enemy of the entire Great Yen cultivation world. Now, we only need to suppress them. Hanju quickly arrived at the main hall, and after entering, he shouted, "Sect leader, Li Qianlong is up to you." Hearing this, everyone asked in disbelief, "Is it over already? They haven't even started the banquet." He then returned to his cave residence behind the mountain. Hanju gently placed Wei Yuan's body down. He immediately cast a spell, muttering an incantation in his mind to release it. A vague shadow immediately appeared in front of him. He was so moved that tears streamed down his face as he stammered, "Elder of God slaying." Hanju coldly spoke, "Huang Zuantian, listen carefully. Do you want to be revived?" His words left Huang Zuantian stunned. He hesitantly asked, "Do you mean to revive me?" Hanju answered seriously, "Yes, there is a body here whose soul has been destroyed, but the physical body still has life. As long as you seize the body, you can revive." After hearing this, Huang Zuantian immediately knelt and bowed. "Huang Zuantian swears to serve the senior as a servant in the future, or my heart demon will invade and I will die without a trace." His head was swollen, but he didn't care, continuing, "I'm determined to follow you. After I'm revived, I will sever all ties with the holy sect of Liuyi. From now on, I belong to you." However, Hanju awkwardly said, "Sorry, the holy sect of Liuyi has been destroyed." Regardless of his disappointment at this news, Hanju silently evaluated, "Huang Zuantian is good at making connections, but I can't fully trust him just because of what he said." The next words caught Huang Zuantian's attention, "This body's identity is not simple. It's the vice sect leader of the Jiolong sect." Hanju stated his purpose, "I just destroyed the soul of a great cultivator in the void realm. Now I want you to replace him." He was terrified by the words void realm, stuttering, "If you command it, I swear I will not refuse." He explained with frustration, "I don't want you to do anything by replacing him, just afraid that those behind him might come for revenge and disturb my cultivation, do you understand?" Tun Thien quickly nodded repeatedly to show that he understood. Hanju coldly said, "You only need to help me cover up this matter for Jiolong sect. Also, I've left a mark in your soul. If you dare to betray me in the future, I can crush you with a thought." After hearing this, he immediately kneeled and sincerely said, "Rest assured, I will never oppose you." After the assurance, Hanju ordered Tun Thien to begin the soul possession. 7 days later, the system notified, Huang Tian's favorability has increased, current favorability is 5 stars. Hanju speculated, it seems the soul possession was successful. In Wei Yuan's body, he is very grateful. Tun Thien respectfully said, "Mission accomplished, I have successfully possessed him." Seeing this, he felt something was still off about old Huang. He then asked, "Thank you for your kindness, senior. May I know your name and Dao title? Calling you Elder of God Slaying seems impolite." Hanju thought for a moment and replied, "Call me Reincarnation." He thought to himself, since the 6 paths of reincarnation have succeeded, it's not inappropriate to be called by this name. But Tun Thien had a different thought, daring to use reincarnation as a Dao title, truly not simple. I must cling tightly to this person. Suddenly, he hesitated and said, "Elder Reincarnation, I just sensed that Jiulong sect is summoning me. As you predicted, they must be anxious since Wei Yuan has been missing for so long." He quickly said, "We should leave for Jiulong sect immediately." He did not forget to remind, Jiulong sect is outside of Dian in Zaiwanzu. Don't go the wrong way, remember not to expose yourself. Huang Tian immediately accepted the order. Before he left, Hanju reminded again, "If it's not easy to be deceived, speak less. After all, you're a great cultivator in the Void Realm, they won't dare to force you." He calmly responded, "Rest assured, I have a plan to solve this in one go." Hanju didn't understand Tun Thien's meaning, so he asked, but he only answered lightly, "Use my original profession." After thinking for a moment, Tun Thien turned back and asked, "Does Senior need me to take the position of sect leader in Jiulong sect?" His words left Hanju stunned for a long time. Then he casually said, "If you're happy, that's fine." After Tun Thien accepted the order, he bid farewell and prepared to leave. At this time, the system suddenly notified, "You have successfully protected Yuling sect and received a spellbook. Congratulations. You have obtained Restoration Technique, which allows all living beings to reveal their true form." After reading this, Hanju thought deeply, "Now that the system has notified me, it means that if I don't keep this trump card, Yuling sect will face trouble." It seems being cautious wasn't wrong, the cause and effect is truly frightening. 1 month later, Li Chengzi excitedly held a toy box and said, "I came to give Elder God Slaying some treasures." He happily pointed to a large pile of things behind him. "Thanks to Elder Han, all the sect leaders from the 19 sects came, apologized to us, and sent many things. I picked out some good items to give to Elder." Hanju helplessly responded, "The sect leader is very thoughtful." Suddenly, Li Chengzi's attitude changed, angrily saying, "I've confronted the leaders of the major sections. The person behind this is that bastard Li Qianlong. He has already been imprisoned by me." Then he sighed, looking worried, and explained, "We've issued a warrant for Zhou Fan and Mo Fujio, but those two seem to have completely disappeared. I'm a bit worried about them." Hanju coldly said, "Don't worry. They have the ability, they may have already left Dian." Li Chengzi replied, "I hope so. Speaking of the Wei family, it's the same. The Wei family has already been expelled from the Dian immortal realm by other sections. Without their interference, the major forces of Dian have become much quieter. Don't worry, that's fine, we don't intend to dominate. We just hope to cultivate peacefully so that our sect can go further." After Li Chengzi left, Hanju ordered the system, open Zhou Fan and Mo Fujio's social connections. Mo Fujio and Zhou Fan's friends accidentally entered the ancient forbidden land and obtained the ancient bitter inheritance. Hanju ate while reading the information and speculated, will these two end up together? He didn't think too much about them for now. Next came a series of messages from his close associates. He felt a little deflated, thinking to himself, these people, especially the disciples, why can't they make things easier for me? Just as Hanju was lost in thought, the system gave another notification. Detected a false manifestation of predestined fortune. This information surprised him, and he couldn't help but think it would cause trouble. Could it be another person? Hanju hesitated for a moment and clicked the option the system had just provided. He felt dejected and confused, thinking, is it another troublemaker? At this moment, the system presented a large amount of personal information about Zun Chang'an. Hanju looked at the flood of information in his mind and couldn't help but sigh. He looked at the section the system specifically highlighted, impressive, a spiritual energy collector model humanoid. Suddenly, he noticed a line of text, Wait, he came specifically to find me? Hanju suddenly remembered the previous introduction and had a bunch of question marks in his head. He silently evaluated himself. Am I really that famous? A figure kneeled in front of a large stone tablet engraved with the words bitter cultivation leads to immortality, muttering to himself, this should be Elder God Slang's cave, right? He was Zun Chang'an, and he clasped his hands together and said firmly, this must be the place. Zun Chang'an speculated, Elder God Slang is a person who has undergone bitter cultivation. He will surely help me escape from my misery. He then thought of Xiao Mei and couldn't help but tear up. I can never lick the ground under her skirt again. At this moment, Zun Chang'an suddenly kneeled to the ground, knocking his head continuously, shouting loudly in front of the large stone tablet, I, the poor monk Zun Chang'an, humbly ask Elder God Slang to accept me as a disciple. But after an hour passed, no one responded. Zun Chang'an's mood dropped. Why is there no response? Could it be that the senior is not here? He put his palms together on his forehead, pushing away the thought from earlier, no, the senior must be testing me. As long as I persist, my sincerity will surely move the senior. Zun Chang'an kneeled again, sincerely saying, please accept me as your disciple, senior. In reality, all of this was seen from Hanju's divine sense. Hanju stroked his chin and pondered, ancient spiritual ginseng is good, but it might also bring trouble. Let's wait and see. Spring arrived, and he was still kneeling in front of the large stone tablet. By summer, a heavy rain fell, but he remained motionless as a mountain. Autumn passed, flowers bloomed, and everyone gathered to laugh and play together. Finally, winter arrived, and the snow covered Zun Chang'an's entire body, yet he still didn't move. It was no longer winter, and suddenly a voice rang out, waking his consciousness. The person asked, aren't you tired after kneeling for so long? The person speaking was Mo. He raised his head to look at her and replied, to see through the beauty in the bones, how could I be tired? Mo looked at him, her brow slightly furrowed, confused by Zun Chang'an's words. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a pitiful expression, stuttering as he asked, are you Elder God Slang? Mo didn't turn to look at him, confirming that she was not. Mo looked up at the blue sky, her emotions unclear, and she whispered, such roles are born to make us look up to them. Mo furrowed her brows, her eyes filled with cold, chilling light. Hanju was not willing to show weakness, staring at her intently. He sat cross-legged opposite Mo and asked, Miss Mo, do you intend to follow your elder brother? And fall into the devil's way? She quickly confirmed, I plan to find my cousin and seek revenge. Hearing this, he slightly curled his lips and asked, after all these years, can you still not let go of the grudges? Mo's expression was vague, the corners of her mouth curving slightly. I thought I had let go of the hatred, but after cultivating to this point, I realized it has become my heart demon. She stretched her slender hands out in front of her, if I can't overcome the heart demon, I will forever be bound and unable to reach the nascent soul stage. After speaking, Mo clenched her fists tightly. She turned her face and softly said, I came specifically to say goodbye to you, everyone in the Yuqing sect except for my cousin. Hanju silently watched Mo, his eyes showing no signs of fluctuation. She slightly lowered her head and spoke her true feelings, the person I care about most is you. You're the only one who has made me feel something. After speaking, Mo leaned closer to Hanju, and the two were face to face. Dragonflies flew over the water's surface, surrounded by small clusters of flowers, creating a beautiful scene. Mo leaned forward, leaving Hanju with a confused expression, and softly said to him, there are some things I must do, or I'll regret it later, so let's part ways here. Mo narrowed her eyes slightly, her face softened, and a slight blush appeared on her face. Suddenly, a mysterious force tightly grabbed Mo's hand. She widened her eyes in surprise, and looked toward the person who had made this move. Hanju was still sitting there, his hand tightly gripping the person's wrist without releasing it. He coldly glanced at Mo and said, your mind is made up, be careful on the road. Mo decisively pulled her hand back, cursing Hanju inwardly, idiot, what are you waiting for? Why hasn't he shown any attitude? She turned her back to him, her face gloomy, a tear gently falling from her eye. I don't know when I'll see you again after this farewell, I really can't accept it. MOU tightly shut her lips, constantly repeating one phrase in her heart, I am unwilling. Suddenly, she turned around and shouted his name, followed by a question, if I come back safely, would you marry me? After hearing this, Hanju gently lowered his head, his face showing no expression. He raised his head to look at her, smiling lightly and said, of course, you will come back safely. MOU heard these words, tears welled up in her eyes, and her heart was filled with joy. As expected, I didn't misjudge him. But contrary to what MOU had expected, as soon as she walked out of the cave, she was caught and tied up by the sect leader. MOU cried and struggled, like a helpless caterpillar. At this moment, Hanju showed an expression that made one want to hit him, pointing at her and saying, didn't I say you would be safe? The two people behind sighed and cursed her. MOU was carried on someone's back, her mouth constantly cursing, while the black-eyed chicken nearby lightly mocked her. Over here, he was shaking hands with the elder. Thanks to your divine sense, we were able to know about these matters. We can no longer allow Yuqing sect's disciples to fall into demonic ways. Hanju responded with a polite smile. At this moment, Li Changzi suddenly remembered something and asked, Elder Han, there was a monk kneeling on the mountain earlier. If I remember correctly, he has been kneeling for 5 years. Hanju immediately froze upon hearing this. He remembered Zun Chang'an, still kneeling in front of the stone tablet, and silently thought to himself, I got too absorbed in cultivation and almost forgot about him. Zun Chang'an was now completely covered by leaves, birds nesting on his body. He mumbled, please, Elder God Slaying, accept me as your disciple. Just then, a voice in front of him caught his attention. He looked up. Zun Chang'an saw the person's figure obscured by sunlight and couldn't help but call out. Hanju glanced at the person on the ground and lightly smiled, confirming that the person he was looking for was indeed him. He was kneeling on the ground, awkwardly speaking, Disciple Zun Chang'an, greetings to Master. Hanju coldly looked at him and asked, to join my sect, unless you become an immortal, you can never leave this mountain. Are you willing? He smiled on his face, secretly admiring the person. Zun Chang'an respectfully kowtowed, expressing his intent, I only wish to close myself off in cultivation, far from the mundane world, which is why I came here. Hanju, hearing this, lightly responded, good, your temperament is not bad. Follow me. He immediately agreed after hearing that. Zun Chang'an was slightly trembling, and beads of sweat began to appear on his face. Hanju stood with his hands on his hips, looking at him, find a place to cultivate. Once you break through to the golden core, I will teach you magic. He thanked Hanju with exhaustion, while the black-eyed chicken next to him thought he wanted to eat Hanju. Suddenly, the system notification sound rang, catching his attention. He glanced at it lightly. The system reported his achievements and gave him 3 choices. Hanju pondered as he stared at the screen, rubbing his chin, carefully analyzing each option, and then realized that the third one was the best. Hanju pressed the third option on the screen without hesitation. The system rang, congratulating Hanju for his choice, and then explained the magic he had just acquired. Looking at its name, Hanju silently imagined how to use it, feeling somewhat speechless. From the rock wall, a voice came out, and someone shouted loudly, this is too much, please pass down more. Unconsciously, 12 years had passed. During this time, many things had happened. A group of people stood straight, their expressions serious, each one looking cold. Yuqing sect had logically risen to become the largest sect in Duyan, and as for how Hanju knew about these matters, he stood there like a wooden chicken, his eyes wide open, his mouth shaped like an O. Hanju lay on the ground, looking at the list of friends he had accumulated over the years. His number of friends among the disciples of Yuqing sect had increased to an astonishing figure. He angrily pointed at the list and cursed, so many friends, when will I finish looking through them? Are you still going to let me cultivate? Hanju lazily placed his hand on his forehead, lightly sighing, the content and friends are all a mess. Normally, I wouldn't care, but I have to flip through them to find someone, it's too troublesome. At this moment, the system spoke, catching his attention. He glanced at it wearily. The system displayed an image of Xing Hongtuan and provided an explanation for Han Ju. After listening to it, his face turned angry, and he cursed at the system in his heart. Han Ju shouted in the canyon, "I clearly remember that this function didn't exist before." The system heard him curse and immediately responded, leaving him with nothing to say. Meanwhile, on a cliff, a figure stood there. The person opposite waved a weapon and charged quickly at him, shouting loudly, "Su Qi, you monster." Everyone's faces were filled with viciousness, and their curses kept coming, all directed at one person. Su Qi was covered in wounds and softly said, "If you want to frame me, how could there be no reason?" He defended himself, "I'm just saying, I've never killed anyone, all these treasures I found. If you want them, come take them yourself." Hearing these words, the others angrily charged forward. They quickly lunged at Su Qi, "Evil beast, accept my strike to avenge the sect leader." But their power was easily avoided by him. Su Qi's gaze darkened, and he scoffed, "Do you think this is my limit?" They froze for a moment after hearing that, each showing a cautious expression. The group immediately stepped back, warning each other to be cautious. Su Qi's face unconsciously became terrifying. "Let me show you my final move." The boy tilted his head and quickly shouted loudly for his master to come and rescue him. But the response he got was an indescribable silence, and the atmosphere became a bit awkward. The boy scratched his head and gave a thumbs up. "Sorry, master went to the bathroom, wait a moment." On the other hand, Han Ju was still immersed in the system, muttering to himself, "Set it to only view friends of special interest." The friends circle became much quieter afterwards. The system displayed a series of information on the screen, and Han Ju thought, with things outside being like this, isn't it better to cultivate at home? At this moment, a new notification from the system rang, catching his attention. The notification showed, "Your disciple, Tua Chi, is being hunted down by the 7 major sects together." Han Ju was stunned after reading it and sighed inwardly, which sect is so lucky? Tua Chi kept shouting in despair, asking Han Ju to come and save him quickly. The people below watched this scene, frozen, standing still. One of them spoke up, "Elder, should we go up?" Another person cupped his fists and saluted Tua Chi, "I am an elder from the Tongdi sect. If my friend is here, why not come out and meet?" The boy trembled all over, sweat pouring down, thinking inwardly, "It's over. Could it be that master is not here because of something urgent?" Suddenly, a man noticed the change in Tua Chi's expression and immediately interrupted his words. He angrily ordered his subordinates to charge up and capture Tua Chi. Tua Chi stood there awkwardly begging for mercy. Knocked to the ground, Tua Chi shouted, "You guys are quick to act, but master must be busy with something urgent." Suddenly, many bolts of lightning appeared in the space. Seeing this, they immediately panicked and retreated. One person spoke up, attracting everyone's attention. At this moment, the sky became dark with thick clouds, and thunder roared. Everyone exclaimed in surprise, "What's going on?" The weather wasn't like this just now. Blood-red lightning continued to strike down. Tua Chi widened his eyes, looking at the sky, thinking inwardly, "Master has come." Strong lightning fell from the sky, directly striking those people. The sky was illuminated by the light of the lightning, and the surroundings were unclear. Tua Chi saw this scene and immediately spread his arms, loudly thanking Han Ju. Another 18 years passed, time flew by like a passing horse. The two stood facing each other, and Han Ju said to the other, "You've been in the sect for 18 years. His face was indifferent, saying, "Today I will test your swordsmanship." Su Chang'an cupped his fists and bowed, his face full of respect, "Master's teachings, I have learned them all." After hearing this, Han Ju nodded approvingly and said, "Good, let me see what level you've reached." The man's gaze suddenly became dangerous, and he immediately drew his sword from its sheath. Sun Chang'an raised the sword in front of him, both hands forming the gesture for chanting a spell, the Heartless Sword Technique. He swung the sword, performing the sword technique he had painstakingly trained in. The deeper the emotion, the sharper the sword. Every sword strike in Sun Chang'an's hand became agile and effortless. He leaped into the air, the sword tip pointing ahead, the sword becoming void of desire, emotion, and attachment, with a clear mind and a void body. But he suddenly thought of Xiaomei, and tears welled up again. Why can't I forget Xiaomei? Is it really possible to master the heartless sword technique? Just letting go of desires is harder than reaching the heavens. Sun Chang'an immediately rejected his thoughts, quickly swinging his sword, the tip aimed at his opponent. Form is emptiness, cut the heart and make it pure. At that moment, the sword tip was gently held in place by a soft force, supported only by 2 fingers. This left Sun Chang'an greatly surprised, staring in shock. Standing opposite, Xing Hongchuan spoke, ignoring Han Ju's astonished gaze. Your sword technique is good, but your cultivation is a bit lacking. After hearing this, Sun Chang'an lowered his head, full of disappointment. My sword technique is so easily blocked, I guess I'm still not good enough. He turned away dejectedly, looking at Han Ju with a confused expression. Am I still unable to see through love? Han Ju placed his hand on his forehead, sighed, and introduced Xing Hongchuan. Let me introduce you, this is your master's wife. Sun Chang'an became stiff upon hearing this and was speechless. Seeing their intimate scene only made him feel more miserable. Sun Chang'an couldn't help but wonder in his heart. Is the heartless sword technique my master taught me fake? Could you really be the world's #1 cultivator? Inside the cave, Xing Hongchuan's voice kept echoing, Husband, this is a divine technique I found for you. She excitedly hung on Han Ju, asking, How is it? This great opportunity, isn't it worth it? Han Ju read while thinking, it's indeed quite good. Her cultivation has already reached the 8th layer of the golden core stage. Han Ju glanced at her behind him. It's thoughtful, but I already have divine techniques. I don't really need these things. Xing Hongchuan pouted. All right then, I still have this to show you. She took out a strange-looking fruit. This is a rare fruit I found in the ancient secret realm. Eating it can increase vitality and physical strength. After eating one, I could crush a hill with one punch. Xing Hongchuan handed him many of these fruits, chattering non-stop, Husband, feel free to eat. I still have plenty. But Han Ju only noticed where she was hiding things and secretly thought, does she really not have any pockets in her clothes? Han Ju thought lightly, this girl always thinks of herself, I can't keep rejecting her. At this moment, she gently leaned close to Han Ju's ear and whispered, I heard someone named Mo Ju came to find you earlier. Han Ju's face turned pale as soon as he heard this, devoid of color. He was about to speak to explain but was stopped by the delicate hand resting on his chest. Xing Hongchuan pressed Han Ju onto the table, her face darkened but still smiling, we'll talk about this later. Her eyes became somewhat perverse as she licked her lips, sometimes, it's necessary to strike first. She gently climbed onto the bed, their clothes scattered on the floor, and at the same time, Han Ju's pleas and Xing Hongchuan's tempting calls could be heard. A few days had passed since that day, and a pair of furry legs walked towards the cave, beginning to call for him. Li Changzi hurriedly reported, the Shuayan Heavenly Gates cultivation world of the Great Way has found a powerful guest elder from somewhere, claiming to want to unify the surrounding cultivation worlds. Han Ju was exhausted at this moment, his weak body resembling that of a drug addict. After a passionate night with the two of them, he was drained, muddled, and murmured a few words, destroy, I'm tired. Meanwhile, Xing Hongchuan was still sound asleep beside him. The sun rose, its light shining on Han Ju's cave, and his voice rang out, what did you just say about the Shuayan Heavenly Gate? Han Ju frowned and complained, it's been restless so soon. Li Changzi explained uneasily, the Great Way cultivation world nearby has already been unified by the Shuayan Heavenly Gate, and they are preparing to attack the Great Yen, with the main target being the Yuling sect. He lightly furrowed his brow and then asked, is the Shuayan Heavenly Gate strong? The person answered anxiously, the issue isn't whether it's strong, but that they have a powerful guest elder, at least someone in the merging void realm. Upon hearing the merging void realm, Han Ju wasn't worried, I'm only afraid they have someone in the core formation realm. Hearing this, Li Changzi replied, it's possible. If not, they couldn't have unified the Great Way cultivation world so quickly. Elder Han, are you planning to run away? He gestured with 2 fingers, and Han Ju felt like he had hit the mark. Hesitant, he said, it depends. If they're at the doorstep tomorrow, I might run. Li Changzi immediately clarified, "It'll take at least a few decades for them to reach here, I'm just informing you in advance." However, Hanju was still uneasy, "It might even be in 10 years, and whether I can reach the core formation realm is uncertain." He hurriedly comforted, "I believe in your potential." After hearing that, Hanju accepted it for the moment but asked another question. Hanju stared at him, "Why do cultivators still fight over territory like mortals?" Li Changzi awkwardly explained, "The more cultivation worlds you control, the more cultivation resources you can obtain. The higher your cultivation, the greater your ambition." With that, he suddenly changed the subject, "Has there been any news from the elder's disciple?" Hanju immediately thought of Yang Tiandong's face, speaking of which, since the cultivation tournament, he's been missing for years. Li Changzi seemed a bit troubled, "We found him, but he said he's now a demon king, living well and doesn't plan to return for now. I'm worried he'll end up like Zhou Fan and Mo Fuzhou." Unlike his concern, Hanju seemed very relaxed, "Let him choose for himself, it's up to him." Hearing this, Li Changzi mentioned the demon dog he raised, but Hanju still didn't care, "Let it learn to be a dog, it'll come back obediently someday." This time, Li Changzi could only sigh, "As expected, it's you." After that, Li Changzi took his leave, preparing to deal with the Shuayan Heavenly Gate issue. Hanju turned around and waved, "Don't get beaten again." Soon after, Hanju saw a warm message left by Xing Hongchuan, "Husband is busy with affairs, next time I will enjoy the pleasures of life with you." After reading it, Hanju angrily cursed in his heart, "That old man messed up my big plans." Hanju picked up the note and carefully looked at its contents, "Pleasures of life, mutual compliment." The Sanqing Juying sword is a top-tier offensive spell, the strongest single-target attack with a high success rate for kills. The Wanjian Divine Sect can summon sword shadows, with a long history, a large attack range, but the lethality of its targets remains relatively weak. Suddenly, he came up with an idea, "What if I combine the two and complement each other's weaknesses?" With this thought, Hanju slightly narrowed his eyes, "In that case, why not unlock my own sword path divine power?" After a while, at the Jinwu sect in Shiyuan continent, in a building on a hillside. In that spacious room, it was completely empty, with only one person sitting cross-legged in the center, meditating. The person was Huang Jihao, with his eyes closed, fully focused. Suddenly, the door was pulled open, sunlight poured in, illuminating the room, and a voice calling Huang Jihao was heard from inside. Shang Wanqiujian walked in and asked him, "Have you figured it out?" Huang Jihao still had his eyes closed. "Losing to you doesn't mean my sword path is weak. Give me 100 years, and I will defeat you. Zhou Xayan's sword sect has helped me, they taught me, and I will never betray the sect, not even if I die," he said, then opened his eyes, revealing a cold look. Hearing this, Shangguan Qiajian's face darkened as he tempted, "If you are willing to stay, I guarantee you can become the #1 sword cultivator in the world and even become a sword immortal. You have a natural sword heart, staying in Zhou Xian's sword sect is just a waste. Once you become a sword immortal, being with Zhou Xian's sword sect will only be an honor." Huang Jihao's face darkened immediately, "Is my sword path talent really invincible?" Hearing his affirmation, Huang Jihao sneered, standing up, "But I've encountered geniuses with sword path talent even more monstrous than yours. They are stronger than you." Shangguan sneered derisively, "Humph, mocking, did you encounter them in your remote great immortal country?" "Don't joke, there's no sword cultivator stronger than me in the great immortal country." Huang Jihao replied dismissively, "Have you heard of the god-slaying elder from the Yuqing sect? His strength is unfathomable. Able to match the void realm of high-level cultivators. Even Guiyuan from the Jiolong sect was forced to retreat." He spat out coldly, "Guiyuan's talent was never great. In order to get resources, he even worked for others, losing face in the void realm. For us void realm cultivators, beating him is nothing." Suddenly, Shangguan's sword also trembled violently, as if it was about to fly out of its sheath. Huang Jihao also faced a similar situation, with the sword at his waist reacting the same way. The two quickly raised their hands to steady their swords. Shangguan Chujian spoke first, "What's happening? Why is the sword flying out?" He then asked in confusion, "Is it a bomb?" As soon as he finished speaking, Shangguan rushed out, "It's not a bomb." The two rushed out of the room, and the courtyard outside was in chaos, with everyone seeing their swords suddenly flying into the sky, causing panic. Looking at the scene in the sky, they were startled. Countless swords seemed to be attracted by some force, flying towards the sky. Shangguan and Huang Jihao were too shocked to speak. Suddenly, he thought of something, his eyes widened in disbelief, and he whispered, 10,000 swords bowing. The sword spirits made a sound, "This is." All the swords suddenly changed direction, flying horizontally, then charging forward. They flew rapidly through the air, heading towards a specific place. This is the Eternal Sword Path. Meanwhile, in a cave, with a familiar slogan engraved. Hanju lowered his head, silently sitting cross-legged inside. Suddenly, he lifted his head, revealing a determined gaze, with a deadly glint in his eyes. Huang Jihao watched as countless shimmering swords flew across the sky, and blurted out two words, "Dian." He wondered, "I don't understand why it's called the Eternal Sword Path." Qiu Jian immediately explained, "It's a sword path divine power realm that's rarely seen in 1,000 years. A strange excitement appeared on his face, "I never expected such a genius to appear today." After hearing Qiu Jian's explanation, Huang Jihao instinctively thought of Hanju's figure. Unless it's him. Suddenly, he asked in a low voice, "If I join the Jinwu sect, what kind of divine power could I cultivate?" Shangguan Qiu Jian frowned and replied, "With your talent, you may not be able to reach that realm." After saying that, he broke into a cold sweat, thinking, "You really dared to consider giving up. Anyway, this is a kind lie." Suddenly, a figure streaked across the sky like lightning. A person fell from the sky and landed in front of them with a thud, startling both Shangguan Qiu Jian and Huang Jihao. The person widened their eyes, their bloodshot eyes glaring as they shouted, "Who has comprehended the Eternal Sword Path?" The disheveled elder spread his arms and yelled at the sky, "I have meditated for 3,000 years with a natural sword heart, yet failed. Why? The heavens are truly unjust." Seeing this scene, the two on the side seemed to be petrified. Huang Jihao sweated as he recalled, "Did you just say my natural sword heart isn't at that level?" Qiu Jian immediately denied it. At that moment, a terrified shout suddenly echoed from the Yuqing sect. Everyone started to panic, as several swords suddenly flew into the sky. Some realized in fear that they were heading toward nearby mountain peaks. On the mountain, Hanju muttered irritably, "It's barely morning, and it's already this noisy, disturbing me from comprehending divine powers. Is there no humanity?" As he spoke, he angrily walked out of his cave, and Black-Eyed Chicken and Zun Cheng'an, seeing their master finally appear, were immediately moved to tears. When Hanju looked up at the sky and saw countless swords flying toward him, he was stunned, surprised as he asked, "What's going on?" The two immediately rushed forward, urgently saying, "Powerful experts are coming, we need to run." In contrast to their frantic actions, Hanju simply spread his hands in confusion. A bright halo appeared on Hanju's palm. "Why does it feel like these swords are subpoenas? Unless I'm the one who did this," he thought, then tried to recite the retrieval command. The halo immediately shrank. After a moment, the light in the sky slowly began to fade. The light surrounding the swords immediately extinguished, and they began to wobble in the air. In the next second, countless swords suddenly dropped straight down to the ground around Hanju. Seeing this scene, Black-Eyed Chicken and Zun Chang'an couldn't help but exclaim, "As expected of our master, his actions are truly extraordinary, resolving the danger." At this moment, the system suddenly popped up a notification, indicating that he had comprehended the Eternal Extreme Sword Path Divine Power. Hanju was surprised to find that the divine power even had different levels. He raised his hand and stroked his chin, pursing his lips while thinking about the name of this divine power. Not long after, Hanju named it 3 Clear Pearls, and the system immediately confirmed it. Additionally, because he was the first to comprehend it, he could choose to enhance his luck. Hanju decided to choose humble cultivation and received a spiritual treasure. On the other side, Black-Eyed Chicken and Zun Chang'an saw him remain motionless for a long time and couldn't help but wonder, could it be that his magical power backfired? As soon as the words were spoken, Hanju's entire body suddenly flickered with a beam of light, causing them to scream, "My dog's eyes." This time, he received a third-grade defensive spiritual treasure, the Yellow Earth King Spirit Protection Cloth, which could automatically resist and attack others. Hanju fell into deep thought. If I make any arrogant moves now, the system won't take back the spiritual treasure, right? He thought about it and immediately refuted himself. Arrogant behavior is not in line with my usual style. But when he saw the gleaming eyes of those two fools, Hanju felt unable to remain humble. Meanwhile, in the Jiulong sect on Xiuan continent, the atmosphere seemed somewhat gloomy, shrouding the vast space. In the main hall, a large incense burner emitted thick smoke, and the Jiulong sect master sat across from Wei Yuan and spoke. "I've come to discuss something with you." Wei Yuan couldn't help but wonder why he suddenly came to find him. The sect master said in a deep voice, "I know our sect has been at odds with the Jinwu sect for a long time, severely damaging resources. Today, I want to send my disciples to join the Dian Immortal Realm. That place is small, with weak luck, and suitable for our development. I want you to lead, how about it?" These words immediately shocked Wei Yuan. He nervously gritted his teeth. Invading Dian? Isn't that seeking death? Wei Yuan tried to persuade. Dian isn't as weak as it seems on the surface. Let's go attack elsewhere. The Jiulong sect master still believed Dian was weak and was puzzled as to why Wei Yuan had been so frightened ever since they returned from that battle. He continued, "If this is done well, the position of sect master will be yours sooner or later, unless you disappoint me." Upon hearing this, Wei Yuan silently roared in his heart, "I don't care about your schemes." After saying that, he stood up and decided to act first. Facing Wei Yuan's lack of cooperation, "Prepare yourself. Later, I will go pick disciples." Watching the sect master leave, Wei Yuan angrily clenched his fists, his body slightly trembling. "Old fox, you're forcing me." Finally, after safely closing the door to meditate, he was once again pushed to the front lines of work. "Just wait, I will return." He silently gritted his teeth. Hanju created the eternal divine power, which triggered an anomaly, and instantly, all major sects sensed danger. Except for the Taoist surnamed Huang, no one believed that the mighty figure who created the eternal sword path would be hiding in Dian. Huang Jihao raised a sign with Hanju's image and angrily refuted the discussions around him. "I guarantee with my character that there is indeed a sword immortal in Dian." His provocative demeanor showed he didn't care about others' criticism of his drawing skills. Shang Wanqiujian helplessly sat on the wall, sighed, and agreed. At this moment, on a majestic mountain peak, Hanju's voice rang out, "The puppet is almost finished." While carving a comical wooden sculpture, he muttered to himself, "It's time to spray some gloss." Suddenly, the system popped up to congratulate Hanju on his 300th birthday. Since he had reached the milestone of 100 years of cultivation, the system offered the choice of exiting the retreat immediately or continuing humble cultivation. Hanju was surprised when he saw the numbers on the notification. As expected, Hanju chose to continue humble cultivation. Afterwards, he received a third-grade spiritual treasure, the Heavenly Immortal Heart Protection Chain, which could automatically absorb spiritual energy from the heavens and earth and protect him in battle. Looking at the information provided by the system, Hanju couldn't help but praise himself inwardly. At this moment, Black-Eyed Chicken and Zun Chang'an once again began their familiar admiration and awe. Seeing them like this, Hanju couldn't help but smugly raise his nose. "I'm in a good mood today, so I'll teach you both a spell." As soon as he finished speaking, the two fools immediately shouted their thanks to Hanju. At that moment, a system notification silently appeared in the corner. The notification was filled with countless reports of external injuries, and the last one was about Su Qi being captured by the imperial family of the Great Jin dynasty. At this moment, inside a luxurious mansion in the Great Jin, Su Qi was forcefully thrown to the ground, gritting his teeth and screaming in pain. He struggled to stand up and loudly asked, "Where is this?" The soldier coldly replied, "This is the Great Jin." A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he gritted his teeth, saying, "You're lucky. The emperor personally ordered that you marry the princess. Until the wedding, you will stay here and are not allowed to leave." As soon as he finished speaking, the soldier slammed the door shut and walked out, and Suchi didn't have a chance to say anything. Outside the door, two guards kept discussing the princess's marriage and couldn't help but wonder why the national master said the fate of the great Jin dynasty depended on this young man. In the dark, silent room, Suchi trembled as he stood up. This is bad, trapped in a dynasty again. If you save me, it's equivalent to opposing a dynasty. Master, you don't need to come anymore. Suchi looked up in despair. Suddenly, a loud, chaotic shouting and screaming came from outside the door, leaving him stunned. Through the shadow projected on the door, Suchi saw blood splattering, accompanied by the screams of monsters and locusts. He curiously looked outside the door. What's so scary about locusts? What came into view was a locust with glowing eyes staring directly at him. Suchi walked outside and stood dazed in front of two giant locusts. He opened his mouth, his eyes wide, unable to say a word, as if frozen in place. Watching the giant swarm of locusts causing people outside to scatter in panic, Suchi immediately thought of his master. The voice of the young boy echoed in the vast space. Thank you, Master, for your help. I will definitely complete the task well. At this moment, Hanju was confusedly checking the system's notification. Disciple Suchi, your luck is bad. The Great Jin Dynasty is facing a disaster, locusts, floods, plagues, and the land is on the brink of collapse, a catastrophe that occurs once in 1,000 years. A week later, Suchi thought, I have faced many difficulties over the years, but being able to pass through them unharmed was entirely thanks to Master's secret protection. He stood quietly in the wind and sand, having tried to call out to his master, but received no response. You have been checking on me for over half a year, making me feel the loneliness and dryness. At this point, Suchi's face had turned pale and haggard, looking very weak, only able to endure loneliness to become an immortal and seek the Tao. Suddenly, Suchi noticed something in front of a tree. Under the shade of the tree, an old man sat silently with a cane. After a while, Suchi walked over and asked, Where is this? The old man only answered with two words, Northern State. Hearing the name Northern State, Suchi was immediately shocked. Nearly 100 years had passed, and Suchi couldn't help but shout with joy, I have finally arrived at the Northern State. Then, Suchi suddenly kneeled down. Master, did you see that? He joyfully looked up at the sky, welcoming the light of victory. The disciple has not let you down. Watching this scene, the old man couldn't help but ask, You're so happy to have reached Northern State. Do you know what Northern State is? Suchi wiped his nose and replied, Actually, I don't know. Is the demon subduing sect in Northern State? The old man asked him again, What does it have to do with the demon subduing sect? Suchi immediately replied excitedly, Once I join the demon subduing sect, it will be relevant. The old man slowly analyzed. The standards of the demon subduing sect are very high. If you have golden core cultivation, it's not easy to join. Furthermore, Northern State is a place where demons run rampant. Senior, I advise you to be careful. Don't go to Northern State, it's a living hell, he warned in a deep voice. Upon hearing this, Suchi simply scratched his head in confusion and said he would be careful. The old man sighed helplessly. The little fool won't listen, he's looking for death. Meanwhile, Suchi thought, is Northern State stronger than my master? Unknowingly, 5 years passed, and on a snowy day, pure snowflakes gently fell on the stone tablet outside Hanju's cave, which was inscribed with familiar characters. As the snowflakes drifted down, a cheer echoed. Jai Chang'an and Black-Eyed Chicken saw the snowflakes falling and immediately ran outside to build a snowman for their master. Just as they were happy, Hanju looked up at the sky and sighed, this snow is falling a bit heavily. Suddenly, the system popped up a reminder, startling him. The notification said that the 10,000-year demon was about to awaken, and Hanju had to choose between immediately emerging to eliminate the demon or continue cultivating to avoid danger. At this moment, on a treacherous snow-covered mountain, snowflakes filled the air, covering the entire space. Young Tiandong frowned impatiently and said, How much longer? The beast tamer immediately reassured him, It's almost done, the Paradigm Demon King has awakened from its slumber. He furrowed his brows, looking somewhat distrustful. If he's really that strong, Why was he injured and fell into a deep sleep for 2,000 years? It sneered coldly, 2,000 years ago, this was still a joyful place for our demon race. The demon king Dian Su was the only demon king in this land, and all the monsters obeyed his orders. Once, the demon king saved an injured cultivator. The lord was ambushed and sealed here. Now, the seal's effect has faded, and the demon king is about to awaken, the demon beast coldly said. The glory of our race must be restored. After hearing this, young Tiandong couldn't help but ask curiously, aren't those cultivators worried about the revival of Demon King Dian Su? It mocked again, laughing, human hearts are even more vicious than demons. 2,000 years have passed, and we have long forgotten the hatred from back then. We might even end up killing each other, so now is the perfect time for us to rise again. After hearing this, young Tiandong just walked away silently. Later, Yang Tiandong tentatively asked, when Demon King Dian Su awakens, will you slaughter the humans of Dian? The demon beast frowned and suspiciously confirmed, this territory is ours. Hearing this, Yang Tiandong's master's figure appeared in his mind. After thinking for a moment, Yang Tiandong decided to find a way to mediate. Suddenly, the traveling demon beast stopped and warned them to be cautious of the demon power protecting its body, which shocked and confused Yang Tiandong. It pointed toward the mountaintop ahead and explained, that is where the demon king was sealed. Although many years have passed, the suppression still exists. The demons behind them were also shocked. Later, at the peak of the snow mountain, the seal had completely disappeared, and the ice was covered with countless cracks. A second later, a large crack suddenly appeared, signaling that something was about to break free. A glowing eye opened slowly, emitting a strong killing intent. Immediately, a demon crawled out from the underground stone layers and roared wildly. In the next second, it dashed toward the distance like lightning. Yang Tiandong and the demons below had to raise their hands to block the dazzling light in front of them. He gritted his teeth in disbelief, the terrifying sense of oppression, far beyond what Master gave me, Master is finished. Returning to Hanju's choice, he decided to continue cultivating and accept the support from the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth. He held the glowing bead in his hand. After 10,000 years, it could attract the golden crow. The golden crow is not the sun, but after 1,000,000 years, it could connect with other worlds. 1,000,000 years is truly too long, Hanju thought while observing it. Then, he turned around and called Zun Chang'an, who was building a snowman, to come over. He stared blankly at the strange bead in his hand, and Hanju told him it was his treasure, reminding Chang'an to be careful when planting it. He widened his eyes and threatened, if it doesn't grow well, I'll hold you responsible. Chang'an was immediately frightened and hurriedly agreed. After Zun Chang'an hurriedly ran with the fusong tree in his arms, the system released a new notification. Hanju read the notification and narrowed his eyes, looking displeased. Meanwhile, in the massive library, the sound of cursing could be heard, trash. In the messy room inside, relentless scolding echoed, Yuqing sect is nothing like this, is this the #1 sect of Dian? It's so weak. Qing Xian was holding a book with a few scantily clad girls on the cover. This book is good, but it's too old to see clearly. I'll look at it later, right now I should prioritize dealing with that elder Zhanshan. He muttered to himself. As he stuffed the book into his clothes, and at that moment, someone had already noticed the intruder and shouted. 2 disciples from Yuqing sect angrily swung their swords forward. How dare you steal a book and sneak into the forbidden area, surrender immediately. However, seconds later, they were punched through the wall and flew out, letting out a scream. Qing Xian sneered as he watched, this is their level. No wonder Elder Zhanshan is called the strongest cultivator in Dian, their level isn't bad. I walked around the sect and still feel that the spiritual energy on this mountain is the densest, and it's where Elder Zhanshan is in seclusion. He pondered as he looked at the distant peak. I really want to see what kind of pathetic look you'll have when you kneel and beg for mercy. Qing Xian sneered with interest. Just then, Hanju had just finished reading the report about Qing Xian, the blood flame skygate, and the havoc caused in Qingyu sect, muttering darkly. In that case, you should be dealt with. After deciding, Qingxian immediately flew toward the mountain peak where Hanju was. His speed was so fast that it could almost match the swirling blizzard wind. Qingxian recalled his conversation with Lu Bumi. Younger brother knows that the elder brother likes to strive for the Tao. But this time in Dian, elder brother, don't forget our main goal. He took a deep breath and responded, the main goal is to investigate the sect's strong enemies, and I will handle it with discretion. The plan is to disguise myself as one of their disciples. Qingxian said with a dark tone, if the sect is strong, I'll consider it slowly. If the sect is weak, I'll destroy it directly. Returning to the present, he glanced with disdain, looking at Yuqing's sect now, no wonder real person Jioding might not stay. It's like a frog sitting at the bottom of a well cultivating, it can't improve. After a while, he finally got closer, and the spiritual energy became denser. It should be close now. If I'm not mistaken, they seem to call this place the Mountain of Hardship to become an immortal. Qingxian lightly jumped onto a tree branch, this name lacks taste. He then leapt into the air, anyway, if he disagrees, it would be appropriate to bury him here. As soon as his words fell, a giant head suddenly appeared in front of Qingxian, its mouth wide open, as if it were going to swallow him whole. Qingxian didn't have time to prepare, his eyes widened in fear, as if he was about to leap out. When he calmed down and looked again, the head had completely vanished into the air. Was it an illusion? Qingxian's forehead was sweating, but he inexplicably felt that the mountain of hardship to become an immortal ahead held potential danger. This is the first time in many years that Qinghan has reached the Dongxi realm. Some monsters in the cultivation world cannot be judged by common sense, so he decided to raise 2 fingers and cast a spell, better be cautious. A beam of green light surrounded his entire body like flames. After a moment, when it was done, he closed his eyes and silently let out a sigh of relief. At this moment, in the mountain of hard cultivation to become an immortal, Hanju was quietly sitting and cultivating. I sense him, he should be like me. A moment later, confirming that Qinghan had arrived, Hanju coldly opened his terrifying eyes. At this moment, Qinghan stood above Hanju and observed, this young man is really handsome. His cultivation level is only at the foundation building stage, he should be a disciple of the slashing God Elder. Qinghan thought for a moment and then asked Hanju, where is the slashing God Elder? Just then, the system suddenly notified him that he had developed a fondness for Hanju. Hanju calmly asked Qinghan, what's the matter? He still squinted his eyes and said happily, of course, it's to invite him to join our blood flame. Before Qinghan could finish speaking, he suddenly widened his eyes in shock. Because the young man in front of him suddenly reached out and summoned something. Then try taking a sword from me, and we'll talk after. As soon as he finished speaking, a sword appeared in Hanju's hand. Qinghan couldn't help but widen his eyes. The origin of this item was not simple. In the next second, he raised his chest and roared, 3. When Hanju whispered the word Qinghan saw the sword energy dancing wildly like lightning in front of him. At that moment, Qinghan suddenly realized and widened his eyes, Dongxi realm, you are the slashing God Elder. At the same time, he also shouted the word out, as Hanju raised his sword to block in front of him. In an instant, the sword had already pierced the ground, and the contact point immediately shone with dazzling light. Then, thousands of sword energies danced wildly, suddenly appearing around him. Qinghan had no time to react, and his shoulder was immediately slashed by a sword. I was careless, quickly retreat. While thinking, he looked up. Then, Qinghan despaired as he discovered, I have been surrounded, there's no way to escape. This sword energy is too domineering, I can't resist it. I'm definitely dead this time. There's no way out, I can only create chaos and take the chance to escape. He raised 2 fingers. A tower appeared in the palm of Qinghan's hand, with a lotus flower on its base. He murmured, sorry, Xiao Qing. Then, a second later, the tower suddenly grew larger, and Qinghan jumped into the air, while Hanju watched everything nearby. He raised 2 fingers, glaring, and cursed with hatred in his eyes, the loss is too great. I will remember this debt. As soon as he finished speaking, a loud explosion occurred, shaking the entire snow mountain, and flesh and blood splattered like bullets. It was the sound of the spiritual treasure self-destructing. A moment later, in another place, Qing Han spat out a mouthful of blood. He gritted his teeth in pain, knelt on the ground, panting heavily. This sword energy is too domineering, never seen before. It actually affected me. Qing Han still hadn't recovered from the extreme fear, just this one move, and it forced me to lose everything. What kind of monster is the slashing god elder? I can't stay here for too long. I must quickly inform the blood flame heavenly gate. He thought to himself, forcing himself to stand up. The yin-yang separation technique means that the soul and body are separated. Once one of them dies, the remaining part will automatically revert to its original form. It was this that saved Qing Xian when his self-destruction attempt failed. Back to Hanju, he witnessed with his own eyes as Qing Xian's body exploded into thousands of pieces. He didn't miss the spiritual energy swirling and bending at the midline. Hanju frowned in displeasure when he saw it. Once again, the avatar's strength has been exposed. He turned around and stood, looking around. I was careless. The enemy is also very cautious. This will be hard to deal with next. Did I go too easy on them? Will the old man come again? Suddenly, Hanju thought of a good friend and hurriedly searched his body. After a moment, he took out a token covered in talismans and muttered, "This will make targeting much easier." On a morning 3 years later, in the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate camp, the sound of counting kept ringing out, 1, 2. Several disciples shouted in unison while practicing enthusiastically. Lu Bumiang scolded sternly, "Forget about the hair, focus on fighting seriously in every battle." Suddenly, a weak voice sounded, "Junior brother, have you finally returned?" He turned his head and immediately was stunned. Seeing Qing Xian in such a sorry state, covered in wounds. He trembled and replied, "I lost my avatar, and the backlash of my vital energy caused serious injuries. But most importantly, I encountered all sorts of misfortunes on the way back." After hearing Qing Xian's explanation, Lu Bumiang stopped worrying too much. He suddenly looked curiously at the person behind him. "Junior brother, who is this?" Behind him was a banner that read, "Grand Oath Ceremony of the Great Yin." Lu Bumiang happily answered, "Our sect's disciples have completed their training. Together, we will pacify the Great Yin." He smiled happily, squinting his eyes with full confidence. Qing Xian immediately thought of Hanju, whose image was like a ghost coming to collect debts, and he was so scared he almost cried out, screaming, "Do not go to the Great Yin." There was an intense shout from the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate camp, "Junior brother, you absolutely can't. The Jade Qing sect of the Great Yin has very powerful experts. Even I can't block one of their moves." The matter of deploying troops can be discussed later. Lu Bumiang was shocked after hearing this, unable to believe it. Qing Xian sobbed and pointed to his own face, "If I don't do this, do you think I'm wearing makeup?" Despite this, he hesitated, "I'm ready for the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate. If we give up now, doesn't that mean all our preparations will be in vain? Moreover, our sect just unified the Great Way, and morale is high. It's not appropriate to strike down morale. We still need a lot of resources, and we must send troops. That guest elder might still have a chance of winning." Lu Bumiang tried to persuade him. Qing Xian coldly analyzed, "The slashing god elder has always been humble. The reason the Jade Qing sect became the #1 sect in the Great Yin is because, on the surface, his cultivation seems to be at the void realm, but he gives off an unfathomable aura. Even if that guest elder battles him, he might not gain the upper hand. Junior brother knows that my intuition is very accurate. I am not afraid of one possibility, but afraid of 1,000 possibilities." After hearing this, Lu Bumiang immediately fell into a dilemma. After a moment, he suddenly turned around and loudly announced, "Target changed, we will strike at Zaiwanzu." The soldiers were momentarily stunned, not understanding his meaning. Lu Bumiang raised his hands and proclaimed loudly, "The Jiolong sect of Zaiwanzu has recently encountered some changes. We must strike them hard while they are weak. This is our opportunity." After hearing this, the soldiers below immediately raised their weapons and slogans, responding enthusiastically. At this moment, Qing Xian turned and left. When he heard his senior brother say he was going to battle, he immediately thanked him with joy. Under Li Bumiang's respectful bow, he was still deep in thought. How could there be such a powerful expert in the Great Yin? At this time, in the northern part of the Great Yin, the wind and snow continued to rage on the mountaintop. The Demon King of Bamboo looked at the monsters in front of him, their expressions respectful. From now on, you will all be my demon generals. Is there any objection? The beast demon was the first to respond and obey the Demon King's orders. Lord, when can we shed blood in the Great Yan's human race? His eyes flickered. When did I ever say we would shed blood on the human race? Suddenly, the Demon King's eyes swept across, seemingly surprised. His gaze quickly locked onto Yang Tiandong, who was respectfully kneeling. The Demon King of Bamboo observed two different auras, one was demonic power, and the other was human energy. A smile of interest appeared at the corner of his mouth, half human, half demon, yet the aura is still this strong. Well hidden, no wonder they didn't notice. Then, the Demon King spoke and called him over, which startled Yang Tiandong. In front of the Demon King's massive figure, Yang Tiandong felt a suffocating fear. The entire atmosphere was oppressive. Yang Tiandong stood up and looked up at the Demon King of Bamboo. Perhaps he was walking toward the abyss, and the Demon King was the master of that abyss. As he thought of this, suddenly something came to mind, and his eyes widened in terror. It's over. At the same time, in a certain place of the Jiolong sect, a man was tightly chained to a rock several times bigger than his body, breathing heavily and shouting, Wei Yuan. As he gasped, he roared, I will never coexist with you in this lifetime. At this moment, he revealed a grim smile and walked closer with a knife. Senior brother, how many years has it been since I returned from the Jade Qing sect? Wei Yuan, holding the knife, approached the man. Let me tell you, it's been 16 years. Do you know how I've spent these 16 years? Since I returned, I've been suppressed by you. It took a great effort to buy over your subordinates. His eyes were filled with hatred and anger. Facing the blade close to his neck, the man still kept his eyes closed. Junior brother, you wouldn't have thought this through so carefully. Who exactly are you? After a while, Wei Yuan, dressed in blood-stained clothes, walked out. Several disciples of the Jiolong sect immediately greeted him respectfully. One of them asked, what is our development direction? Where is the sect master? He coldly replied, just focus on intense cultivation. Suddenly, the man proposed to attack the Great Yin, which surprised Wei Yuan, and he immediately turned around. His roar echoed through the building, no one is allowed to mention the Great Yin again. Several disciples immediately responded, understood. At this moment, Han Ju was looking at the Book of Misfortune. Li Qianlong's name had already been crossed out, while Xiao Yi and Qing Xian were still there. He couldn't help but frown and sigh, it's been so long, and there's still no change. Selling junk doesn't bring in much money, and grilling meat is more useful than you. Those who want to die just can't. Han Ju put down the Book of Misfortune, stretching lazily with exhaustion. In the last battle, I didn't consider the enemy being as cautious as I am. Xiao Yi couldn't do anything about him. In the future, when encountering enemies, we must use the big moves to kill them instantly. Suddenly, someone shouted, Elder Han. Li Changzi hurriedly raised his hand and ran over to report loudly, this is bad. Contrary to his urgency, Han Ju coldly said, did the demon beasts come again, or is the blood flame heavenly sect attacking? Li Changzi immediately denied it and then explained that Wei Yuan had risen to become the new sect master of the Jiolong sect. Will he come here for revenge? Upon hearing this, Han Ju was also surprised and opened his mouth. He recalled that person's contemptuous face. Do I need to be the sect master? Then he sweated and forced a smile. Is that even possible? Han Ju secretly sent Wei Yuan a golden badge to resolve the internal strife. He glanced at the system notification. Jiolong sect master Huang Zuentian. He couldn't help but exclaim, as expected, it's you, old Huang. With this thought, Han Ju spoke to comfort Chang Jiao, don't worry, I had an agreement with Wei Yuan, he won't come to cause trouble for me. Seeing Han Ju's confidence, Li Changzi was also invigorated, that's great, Elder Han. Afterward, Hanju was about to leave to continue his cultivation when he was called by Li Changzi again. He turned around in confusion and looked at Li Changzi. Is there anything else? Li Changzi suggested that Hanju take the position of the 4th generation sect master. You have contributed so much to the Jade Qing sect over the years. Your achievements surpass others, and you should be the sect master. No one is more suitable than you. The more Li Changzi spoke, the more persuasive he became. In response to his enthusiasm, Hanju coldly rejected him. He turned and entered the cave residence, facing Li Changzi's earnest request. Being sect master is not so easy. Enduring daily work is fine, but the most crucial thing is there's no time for cultivation. Then, Li Changzi became an invisible stone statue in front of the cave residence. Zun Chang'an casually walked by him with a water bucket. Li Changzi watched him water the flowers inside. After so many years of hard cultivation, the immortal mountain has grown so big. What kind of genius treasure could it be to generate such powerful spiritual energy during gestation? Moreover, this demonic pet's cultivation was already at the golden core level, stronger than some disciples in the sect. It was even better than a chicken. Li Changzi looked at the black-eyed chicken. Suddenly, someone walked from behind. Li Changzi thought it was another golden core demon creature. The next moment, upon seeing the person, Li Changzi was terrified and exclaimed, "Heavens, half human, half demon." Shortly after, Yang Tiandong walked coldly in front of Hanju and greeted him. Hanju coldly responded, "So, you know how to come back?" Hanju crossed his arms helplessly and let him cry, falling into his arms. "I was caught by a demon king." Yang Tiandong howled in pain. "After going through countless hardships, I became a demon king. The demon tribe's subordinates have deep feelings for me and can't bear to part with me." He still sarcastically remarked, "Your image as a demon king is really unconvincing." It wasn't until he mentioned the most powerful demon king, Dian Su, appearing in Great Yan's history that he froze. Could it be that 10,000-year-old demon? Yang Tiandong gritted his teeth. "The previous demon kings could only submit, and even forced me to be his adopted son. He secretly planned to cultivate the Great Yan people and is now preparing to lead the demon tribe toward the borders of Great Yan." As soon as he finished speaking, Hanju's face immediately darkened, and he coldly ordered, "Say it again." Yang Tiandong repeated the news about Dian Su Demon King planning to unify Great Yan, but Hanju made him repeat the earlier sentence. Yang Tiandong said dejectedly, "Dian Su Demon King forced me to be his adopted son, and I couldn't refuse." After that, Hanju immediately became enraged, grinding his teeth. "He actually took my son. How strong is he? Dian Su Demon King is at least in the harmonization realm. With his aura, he could kill us all." After thinking for a moment, he suddenly kneeled on the ground, shouting, "I used the excuse of going to investigate Great Yan to escape. Let's leave quickly." Hanju, upon hearing they weren't planning to escape, immediately looked up in anxiety. Hanju coldly sneered, "Now you go back to see that demon king, and tell him that the master greatly admires him. Anyway, speak well of me, make him have a good impression of me." Hanju smiled, narrowing his eyes. He was flustered by that smile, hesitating as he said, "Master, are you planning to ally with the enemy?" Hanju didn't answer, only kicking Yang Tiandong out of the cave. "Just do as I say." 3 months later, after reading the system notification, Hanju exclaimed in surprise, "Suchi actually joined the Demon Beast sect." Hanju sighed, then continued meditating, when suddenly the system reminded him that Dian Su Demon King had developed a good impression of him. Hanju was immediately overjoyed. "Yang Tiandong is really impressive, though I don't know how you persuaded him." Meanwhile, his obedient disciple was excitedly showing a painting, in which Hanju looked incredibly charming. "This is my master, everyone has always admired him." The demons immediately agreed, "What a beautiful person. How about we make her the chief wife? What do you think?" Yang Tiandong immediately corrected, "Hanju is not a woman." He calmly reassured the demons, "We don't mind these things, look how happy the master is." Elsewhere, Hanju slammed the Book of Misfortune onto the table. "Everything is ready. With the 4th level Harmonization realm relying on my 7th level void realm strength, the chance of victory isn't high now. But no matter how strong a cultivator is, the Book of Misfortune cannot calculate causality. While it can't curse the enemy to death, it can make them develop a sense of disgust, regardless of their cultivation level. As long as these people are on the friends list, the Book of Misfortune can target them for cursing. If only their name is written, the curse's power won't be enough to kill the enemy. Li Qianlong is an example. The key is, Hanju has never fully used the curse, as it requires a large amount of spiritual power. This time, I'll try cursing Dian Su Demon King with all my spiritual energy. The Book of Misfortune emitted a glow, causing Hanju's face to slightly twist. The light seemed to seep into every inch of his skin, illuminating every millimeter of his face. The system also issued a harsh warning: excessive use of the Book of Misfortune will result in backlash. Suddenly, Dianzu Demon King howled in pain. With his roar, countless drops of blood splattered in all directions. He struggled to sit on the ground and coughed violently, spitting blood for nearly 5 hours. Is this a curse? Who did I offend to dare use such a method? Dianzu gasped in exhaustion, blood continuously flowing from his mouth. Could it be that they have come back? This is impossible. Time rewinds tens of thousands of years. Back then, he was left speechless, terrified by the scene before him. In front of him, countless beams of light pierced through the cloudy sky, shooting directly at the ground, a divine miracle. He had also witnessed celestial beings and Buddhas in the sky. Now, Dianzu couldn't help but think, did they find out about the plan to destroy Great Yen, so they came to warn me? Hanju wasn't at ease either. It was his first time casting a curse for 5 continuous hours. Upon reading the notification about Dianzu Demon King being cursed, Hanju couldn't help but be surprised. The Book of Misfortune finally responded. This is the first time. He closed the Book of Misfortune with force. That's enough. The effect of using it with full power is indeed domineering. Although it caused 10,000 damage to the enemy, it inflicted 800 damage on myself. Hanju himself suffered side effects, with internal bleeding. He sat cross-legged, gazing outside, and decided, I will curse Dianzu Demon King every 3 years, so that this guy will no longer scheme against us. 5 years later, at a place where 2 trees intertwined into a strange shape. The coat hanging on the rack made a faint wheezing sound. Xing Hongchuan's face turned red, sweating profusely, glancing at Hanju who was panting heavily. He looked up with a satisfied expression. Right, let's do it this way, it feels really good. She was so hot from the spice that she kept fanning herself. What dish did my husband make? Hanju happily replied, it's snail noodles, I used to make it very well. Suddenly, he sensed 2 presences from the void realm approaching Yuqing sect, and immediately turned his head. One of them is a familiar face. Seeing Hanju suddenly stand up, Xing Hongchuan asked in confusion if he was leaving. Hanju told her to wait for him and then left. Xing Hongchuan looked at the fragrant bowl of snail noodles, her mouth watering. Husband, come back quickly, it'll be bad if it gets cold. Or should I help you finish it? At that moment, Hanju sensed the 2 presences had arrived at the front of Yuqing sect. So this is Yuqing sect? I see. Shanghuan Qiujian sneered in disdain. Are there really any experts here? What are you talking about? I don't feel any particularly strong sword intent, seems like nothing special. Huang Jihao responded calmly, don't start boasting yet. Suddenly, a sound came from behind, startling them into immediately turning around. Seeing Hanju walking toward them seriously, Huang Jihao quickly greeted Shanghuan Qiujian while also wondering when he had arrived, as he hadn't sensed him at all. Shanghuan Qiujian opened his eyes in disbelief. Is this the senior Huang Jihao described? He was holding an abstract painting of Huang Jihao, asking him to go back and redo it. Huang Jihao awkwardly explained that he hadn't realized the senior had changed his hairstyle, while Hanju stood ominously watching them. He hurriedly explained, Senior, rest assured, we mean no harm. This is Shanghuan Qiujian, the first swordsman of the Zhenwu sect in Shiyuan continent. He has come here to discuss swordsmanship and have a duel with you. Hanju was speechless upon hearing about the duel. He's only just reached the 9th level of the Dongxi realm. How dare he do this? Over there, Shangguan Qiujian seemed very confident. Fellow Taoist, rest assured, it's just a duel. It won't affect the relationship between Yuqing sect and Jinwu sect. He sighed in frustration, lowering his head. I'm a person who dislikes trouble. I'll strike once. If you can block it, then I'll admit defeat. Huang Jihao widened his eyes in shock upon hearing this proposal. Shangguan Qiujian's confident reply only made him more flustered. Do you look down on me? I really want to see the mystery in your sword. Hearing this, Hanju gloomily raised his head and summoned his sword. Then I must trouble you, fellow Taoist Shangguan. The sword appeared, and Huang Jihao's eyes widened in shock. It's over, the senior is even stronger than last time. Shangguan Qiujian was also sweating from the pressure of the aura, gritting his teeth. My body is unconsciously tense, and I can't help but feel the thought of not being able to face this head-on. He raised his hand, preparing to unsheath his sword, but Hanju had already slashed out a sword. A sword was slashed out from the heavenly pillar ghost god sword. It howled like a hurricane, rushing toward Shangguan Qiujian. He was stunned, unable to believe the terrifying speed. The sword was in front of him in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, Shangguan Qiujian was shaken, his mind going into chaos. His entire life's memories seemed to rewind in his mind like a film reel. It started from when Shangguan Qiujian was still happily living at home. Then he joined the Jinwu sect. And met the girl he loved. Not long after, Shangguan Qiujian witnessed the scene of his lover wearing a green hat. Then he suffered in love. Afterward, he kept swinging his sword, trying to dispel the pain in his heart. Then he became a ruthless playboy. Those memories replayed as if on loop, leaving Shangguan Qiujian stunned, his mouth agape. Returning to reality, he stood there like he was dead. The sword strike landed beside where he stood, splitting the ground in two. Hanju withdrew his sword and sighed. As expected, the accuracy of my left hand is not as good as my right. Huang Jihao knew he had held back, stunned as if turned to stone. Hanju coldly looked at Shangguan Qiujian. It seems you can't even block my strike. In the next moment, he suddenly knelt down with a thud, catching everyone off guard. Shangguan Qiujian was stunned, unable to believe it. He didn't even have a chance to resist. The first swordsman of the Jinwu sect in Xiyuan continent can't block my strike and still wants to be the world's #1 swordsman? How laughable. Suddenly, Hanju spoke, leaving him stunned. As the saying goes, there are always greater people and higher realms. Without going through storms, how can one see the rainbow? Your talent isn't bad, and if you want to defeat me in the future, it's still possible. He smiled, like an angel in the light, guiding those destined. I value you. These words moved Shangguan Qiujian to the point where his eyes welled up with tears. He slumped, kneeling on the ground with his head lowered, groaning, I lost. Shangguan Qiujian seemed like a soulless corpse, just drained of all vitality. Hanju hurriedly looked at Huang Jihao, greeting him. Did I go too far? Maybe he didn't come to cause trouble, just to seek advice. He turned and said coldly, I held back just now. He should be able to delay today's matter. Don't tell anyone. Suddenly, Shangguan Qiujian shouted to stop Hanju. May I ask, what is your Taoist title? He cautiously probed. Hanju paused slightly, as if thinking about something extremely profound. Then, Hanju turned, coldly curving his lips, and replied with 2 words, reincarnation. Immediately, he vanished in an instant, leaving Shangguan Qiujian staring at him, murmuring that name. Who exactly is this senior? Huang Jihao saw his despairing expression, patted his shoulder, and comforted him. You've done well. At least you weren't injured. I was in a worse situation than you. Shangguan Qiujian didn't respond, still murmuring, this Taoist title, could it be a reclusive great being, experiencing life? It turns out, I am nothing but a frog in a well. At this moment, the system also notified Hanju that Shangguan Qiujian's favorability toward him was 3 stars. Hanju's face darkened. These so-called geniuses, do they always have something? A few reactions and they already like me. There was a time when it was really impressive, but then it went downhill. Li Qingzi cried out in pain. The Yuqing tree was personally planted by the Nine Cauldrons ancestor when the sect was founded. He choked, pointing to the ancient tree that had been split in half. It's been over 1,000 years. Who the hell did this? Hearing this, Hanju pretended to be confused. I got lucky and saw it was done by a cat. Of course, Li Qingzi didn't believe it. How could a cat have such power? The wound was still there, and redrawing the map was very troublesome. Hanju nervously hid in the corner. I was a bit too arrogant in this battle. The formation was too sloppy. Some techniques get stronger as cultivation improves. I need to comprehend a technique that can fight humbly without affecting the surrounding environment. At this moment, on a familiar snow-covered mountain, the snow had piled up thickly, dazzlingly white. A wooden table was smashed in half. Why does this feel like this? Who exactly is targeting me? Dianlua Demon King kept spitting blood, painfully smashing furniture. Suddenly, a demon general walked in to report, Yang Tiandong is here. Upon hearing this, the Demon King took a deep breath and calmed down, then ordered, let him in. Yang Tiandong respectfully walked in and saluted. I heard that father is troubled, so I came here specially to relieve your worries. Tianzu looked very interested and let out an "Oh, you know about my situation?" He immediately said that recently he had sought an oracle from a great person, and the oracle revealed that his troubles were related to his career. Hearing this, the man seemed somewhat surprised. Does this vow have anything to do with the humans I plan to deal with? Yang Tiandong immediately replied, it might not be impossible. Tianzu tiredly raised his hand to cover his forehead. I'd rather believe it's true than not. Perhaps because of this, all the immortals have descended to punish me. He saw everything proceeding as planned and immediately got to the point. Do we need to cancel our plans for the humans? The man lowered his head and sighed. For now, inform everyone to cancel it. Yang Tiandong secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It's so easy to deceive him. Master's great feast is safe. Thinking of this, he raised his ambitious eyes. But that's not enough. I have even grander goals. Not long after, Yang Tiandong walked gloomily through the military camp, thinking, how can a hero lower his head to anyone? In the gloomy sky, a dazzling sun suddenly appeared from the dark clouds. He thought to himself, just wait, Tianzu. Old man. Yang Tiandong turned back and said, the position of the Demon King will be mine sooner or later. 6 months later, in a certain place, Shangguan Qiujian and Huang Jihao sat on a rock wall, talking after defeating someone. Shangguan said he had regained his initial confidence. I plan to return to the Zhenwu sect for seclusion, cultivate my Dao heart, and then go challenge that senior. Hearing that Shangguan dared to go, Huang Jihao sarcastically said, I won't carry you back then. Suddenly, several strange rays of light appeared on the horizon. 2 swords lay quietly on the ground, suddenly shaking violently as if being pulled into the air. Huang Jihao and Shangguan Qiujian were both surprised. Has someone comprehended the eternal sword path again? Suddenly, as if thinking of something, he quickly turned his head. You don't think this is? Shangguan immediately interrupted him. It's absolutely impossible. At this moment, he seemed so desperate that he was on the verge of tears. To comprehend the eternal sword path once in a lifetime is already remarkable. How could he? Huang Jihao still didn't understand, but from the direction, it looks like it's from Dian. Upon hearing this, Shangguan stopped arguing. The strange light spread to the surrounding mountains, forming a mysterious scene. On a mountain slope, a man sat and noticed the phenomenon. Someone has comprehended the eternal sword intent again. After speaking, he took out a talisman and placed it on the ground in front of him, preparing to do something. Then, he raised his hand and formed a hand gesture, beginning to perform the divination technique. Soon after, he suddenly stopped, surprised. I can't continue the divination. He looked at the 2 characters reincarnation written on the paper with confusion. Is reincarnation the law of heaven and earth, or the ability of a cultivator? Meanwhile, at the Yuqing sect, everyone was discussing, the sky is changing, what is going on? Could it be that a great being has appeared? A natural phenomenon, all swords ringing in unison, something terrifying is sure to happen. Hearing this, Li Qianzi hurriedly comforted, everyone doesn't need to worry. Didn't we already experience the sound of 10,000 swords last time? Nothing happened then, so this time there won't be any problems. On the surface, he spoke confidently, but inwardly, he silently cried, "Why does our generation of Yuking sect have so many disasters? I wonder if Elder Han Sai has been alerted. If he leaves Yuking sect because of this, I fear we will never find the sea-settling needle again." At this moment, the familiar slogan carved on the stone inside the cave appeared. Hanju closed his eyes, and a flashing mark appeared in the middle of his forehead. Suddenly, several vague human-like figures appeared in his mind. This made Hanju frown involuntarily. As those figures increased in number, he hurriedly opened his eyes in panic. It was then that Hanju realized he was standing in a strange place, and the figures around him were just like the ones in his thoughts earlier. Where is this? Hanju nervously looked around. I was just in the cave, how did I suddenly end up here? Suddenly, the system reminded him, this is the Sword Dao River, where you can cultivate the Sword Dao. The depth of your understanding determines how far you can go. He immediately understood. Hanju couldn't help but sigh, it's truly vast and boundless. I wonder what the end of the Sword Dao River looks like. The person standing in front of me proves that their Sword Dao ability exceeds mine. I'm so lucky. It's a good thing I didn't go out, or I would probably have been defeated by these people. Thinking of this, he immediately stepped forward, filled with determination. I can't fall behind. I need to catch up with them first. Suddenly, a dazzling light flashed, and Hanju was shaken by the impact. A giant immortal appeared and said in a deep voice, "You, immortal, want to enter the immortal realm? You are not qualified. Leave now." Upon hearing the words immortal realm, Hanju was immediately shocked. The immortal's eyes gleamed, and then he shouted, "Go!" His voice was deafening. As soon as the words were spoken, several dazzling sword energies shot towards the spot where Hanju was standing. Hanju, stunned, couldn't react in time. His face remained pale, filled with fear. A second later, Hanju's body was surrounded by smoke, and the surrounding scenery became unclear. He threw his head back in agony and let out a heart-rending scream, as if undergoing intense torture. After a moment, the smoke dissipated, and Hanju knelt on one knee, panting heavily. He gritted his teeth in anger. Who is that person? With just sword energy, he can hurt me from the air. Luckily, he had no killing intent, or my primordial soul might have been suppressed. Suddenly, the system popped up. Notification. Hanju has comprehended the Tai sword intent or reincarnation sword intent. When he saw the words Tai level, his eyes widened, and he exclaimed, "Immortal dares to enter the immortal realm." Hanju recalled what the immortal had said earlier, unless this is a realm beyond the mortal world, isn't the immortal realm the world after ascension? He darkly raised his hand to summon the spell from earlier. The people on the Sword Dao River have an average cultivation of Great Ascension False Void. This makes it clear, the higher the cultivation, the stronger the sword intent. Hanju rotated two of his fingers. Then he flicked these two fingers. When enemies come to challenge in the future, use the reincarnation sword intent to respond and control, without causing too much commotion. At this moment, in front of the cave, Zun Chang'an was focusing on practicing swordsmanship, facing a scarecrow. In front of him was a scarecrow decorated like Hanju. Suddenly, the scarecrow's head was chopped off. Zun Chang'an hadn't even drawn his sword yet, and he widened his eyes in shock. Chang'an stared blankly at the sword in his hand, stunned for a moment, his expression confused. Then he cried out joyfully like a child, "Master, I finally have sword energy." On a full moon night, in the demon cultivation sect, everything was still as usual. In the arena, several pairs were fiercely battling, determined to force each other into a deadlock. Su Chi, bored, rested his chin on his hand and looked at the sky. "Master, why haven't you made a move yet? I'm about to be forced into practicing demonic skills." Just then, someone suddenly jumped down from the sky, covering the entire moon. He landed with a thud and loudly shouted, "Stop training." Elder Shao he had passed away, and all the disciples immediately bowed. The man solemnly announced. As soon as the words were spoken, everyone immediately couldn't believe it and began discussing whether it was true or not. Su Chi was also shocked, murmuring to himself, I was just listening to his teachings this morning, and now he's gone. He suddenly suspected that his master had started making a move. After a while, in a spacious room, moonlight spilled over the coffin placed in the center. Inside the coffin was Xiaohe, dressed in white, his eyes closed. Du Quan, the sect leader of the demon cultivation sect, looked up and asked, "We've done our best. This secret method can only maintain the soul body for 15 minutes. You passed away suddenly today, do you have any unfinished business to address?" Xiaohe's residual soul expressed that he was unwilling to die without knowing the truth. Hearing this, Du Quan explained that, from the signs, he died due to the end of his lifespan, but Elder Two suspects that Xiaohe died due to a curse. He suddenly seemed to understand something. No wonder my luck has always been bad, encountering inner demons during cultivation, with my progress regressing instead of advancing. The few disciples below angrily asked Xiaohe, "Do you know who did it?" "We will surely avenge our senior brother." He showed a troubled expression, "Because I've already killed all my enemies." Unfortunately, the difficult-to-recover body was preparing to regain strength. At this point, Xiaohe suddenly remembered something and widened his eyes. That plan was interrupted. His mind conjured Hanju's face. "Since returning from Dian, I've encountered a series of unfortunate events. How could he possibly have such power?" But in the end, the only remaining explanation was the truth. Du Quan looked at the situation in panic. "Not good, junior brother is angry, this will speed up the soul's dissipation." Xiaohe desperately held on to the last bit of his strength and admonished, "I only have one last thing to say, absolutely do not go to Dian. And never provoke Yuking sect of Dian." After saying this, Xiaohe's soul completely dissipated. The disciples immediately cried bitterly, regretting Xiaohe's summon of the demon dragon and the hidden treasures. After a while, Du Quan asked in confusion, "Where is Dian?" But the people around him also didn't know. "Should we send someone to investigate?" He immediately waved his hand. "Too dangerous, didn't you hear junior brother's last words? Even provoking them is not allowed. What kind of low-level place is this?" At this moment, the system notified Hanju that Xiaohe had passed away. He was eating noodles when he saw the notification and was greatly shocked. On the familiar snowy mountain top, a scream echoed from within the cave. Dian Su angrily punched the ice wall, shattering it into pieces. Then, he crazily closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and charged into the wall. After a while, Dian Su roared madly, "I can't take it anymore, why is this happening? I clearly made a promise to the heavens, why do I still have to endure this suffering?" Yang Tiandong, terrified, almost cried, hugging his legs in a corner, surrounded by shattered debris. He painfully turned his head and asked him, "What do you think we should do?" Yang Tiandong calmed down and seriously suggested, "Perhaps the immortals and gods want to see your actual actions?" Dian Su curiously said, "Explain." Yang Tiandong analyzed, "For example, shouldn't you visit and befriend human sects? Maybe the immortals and gods will change their opinion of you." He impatiently complained, "Visit sects? Are you joking? With so many sects in Dian, do you want me to visit every single one and talk cheerfully with those cultivators?" He immediately smiled, "You can just pick any sect to visit, it's enough to show a symbolic gesture." After hearing this, Dian Su suddenly remembered that Hanju had asked him which sect he was from. Yang Tiandong hurriedly replied, "It's Yuking sect." He immediately made a decision, "Let's leave today, we'll go right away." Then he realized something, "Wait, I haven't notified Master." Yang Tiandong quickly spoke to stop him, "Humans care a lot about first impressions, you should put on some makeup. If done right, making friends will be half the success." Dian Su immediately complained. In the end, he said it wasn't possible, but his body was very honest. He sighed in distress, "Can it really succeed halfway?" Yang Tiandong suppressed his laughter, "Yes, very practical." After a while, when they arrived at the gate of Yuking sect, Dian Su shouted loudly, "Where is the sect master of Yuking sect? Come out and meet this king." Yang Tiandong quickly muttered, "Making friends is not like this." At this moment, Hanju also received the notification that the strongest demon king, Dian Su, was at Yuking sect. He furrowed his brow, thinking cautiously, how did he come here? In front of him, Hanju saw someone exactly like Dian Su, glaring fiercely, radiating a murderous aura. Hanju raised his sword and jumped, leaping into the air. No one had time to explain. He spoke first. That guy has his mouth wide open with sharp teeth. A force surged out of his mouth, gushing like a faucet. He also swung his sword, continuously casting techniques, reincarnation sword intent, 3 clear world-ending thunderstorm, 9 dragons demon extermination seal, divine finger sword. After a while, Dianken had already been knocked down by Hanju's punch, buried under a pit of earth and rocks. The system also issued a prompt, stating that the 34th session of the simulation training room had ended. He looked up darkly. Next, I need to see what this demon king is doing here. Outside the cave, Li Qingshi was sweating nervously, thinking to himself, Elder Han has been in the Jianghu emergency rescue for many years. Hasn't Yuking sect been unlucky enough? He cried angrily, forget about the 13 sects last time, but the one Yang Tiandong brought back is even more dangerous. If it weren't for you being Elder Han's disciple, I would have struck you dead with a palm by now. Suddenly, Hanju walked to the rock wall and shouted downward, I wonder what Demon King Dianken has to teach us at Yuking sect? He immediately called out, its master. He coldly crossed his arms and looked down with disdain. Li Qingshi couldn't help but mutter, Elder Han truly has great abilities. He actually guessed that Demon King Dianken would come to Yuking sect. Dianken's body suddenly tensed, sweat pouring down. Is this an illusion? The demon race is naturally sensitive to combat energy. He clearly just fought, and even has the scent of blood on him. How can there be so many beings at the integration stage in Dian? Thinking of this, he again saw Hanju's cold gaze. His sword intent really makes me feel dangerous. After a while, Dianken, drenched in sweat, awkwardly smiled. I heard about Elder Han's beauty and have always wanted to drink a cup of wine with you. Before he could finish his sentence, Hanju darkly threatened him. Dianken nervously changed his words, I want to be brothers with Li Changjiao, make friends with Elder Han, and hope that Elder Han will make it happen. Yang Tiandong stood behind, secretly raising a card to explain. Demon King Dianken thought that the immortals were cursing him, so he wants to befriend Yuking sect to show his sincerity to the immortals. This time, Hanju was stunned. A second later, he immediately flipped his expression, smiling, I curse people, and now I'm being suspected of being the actions of immortals? So, Dianken hurriedly thanked Hanju and quickly pushed Li Qingshi away. He smiled casually, this is fine too, having one more ally is better than one more enemy. After 10,000 years, the Demon King of Dian communicated with the human race for the first time through intellectual exchange. Li Changjiao proposed a joint strategy of maintaining differences, to establish a trade foundation using the 9-word true formula to guarantee mutual benefits, firmly promoting it from the masses to the masses, striving for a win-win outcome. Demon King Dianken appreciated this point, stating that the unity of the human race was worth learning, and that the demon race would push for deeper commercial cooperation by utilizing advantages and avoiding weaknesses. Dian and the cultivation world were shocked by this, and the status of Yuking sect reached an unprecedented peak. The historical significance of this alliance was in proving that different races could live in harmony, leaving a profound impact on future generations. Hanju lazily sighed while lying down. Demon King Dianken is done for, Xiao Yu is dead, no daily tasks, still need to cultivate to avoid boredom. Suddenly, the system popped up again. After reading it, he furrowed his brow and asked in confusion, who is this? The notification read that the Elder of Enlightenment had a 4-star feud with Hanju. He happily shouted, this one has come to you. In the ancient secret realm, Xing Hongchuan was now forced into a dead end. She fearfully asked the person in front of her, what do you want? Elder of Enlightenment stared at Xing Hongchuan, his eyes filled with killing intent. I didn't expect this young girl to be able to practice the divine art on this wall. I've studied it for so long and still haven't figured it out. She had no choice but to lower her head to him. This art has no master, only those with destiny can comprehend it. I haven't damaged the scriptures, and you can continue to study them, senior. He still wouldn't let go of Xing Hongchuan. This divine art was left by our sect's ancestors. You, young girl, are fated with my sect. Come with me to the impermanence sect. Xing Hongchuan could only make an excuse. I already have a master, and my Dao companion is nearby. This secret realm is connected to many places. If I don't return soon, he will come looking for me. The Elder of Enlightenment was unwilling to relent, even calculating something. You have a master? Dao companion? At this moment, he realized he had been tricked. You want to threaten me? Stop lying. You and I have no destiny in this life. The Elder of Enlightenment stopped being lenient and decided to capture her. This young girl has mastered the divine art. It would be perfect to bring her back as my disciple's furnace companion. Xing Hongchuan didn't surrender easily. She suddenly swung her blade to block his path. She pressed the blade to her neck and threatened, if you continue to force me, I'll only repay you with death. She advised, you should take back what you just said about no destiny. The Elder of Enlightenment immediately cast a move. Since you won't listen, don't blame me for being rude. His moves were fast and lethal. In an instant, he trapped Xing Hongchuan. Vines tied her up, and Xing Hongchuan found it hard to breathe and couldn't struggle. The Elder of Enlightenment angrily warned, I've always been precise. When I say there's no destiny, there really is none. At that moment, a small insect arrived with news. Sect leader, bad news, Dong Fangxian has lost control, her life is in danger. Please hurry back. The Elder of Enlightenment was extremely furious. Of all times, this woman is useless right now, taking her back is too rushed. Seeing that Xing Hongchuan couldn't resist, he had already plotted his scheme. The situation with Dong Fangxian is unclear. Let this woman cultivate for a while longer, it will be more interesting to enjoy her later. Before leaving, the Elder of Enlightenment didn't forget to warn Xing Hongchuan. I've marked you. Don't think of escaping. If you agree to join Impermanence sect, I will forgive your earlier offense and give you 10 years to consider. Xing Hongchuan, having escaped the danger, fell to her knees in fear and relaxed her body. Everything was recorded by the doll, and naturally, this information would be passed on to the person who created it. At this moment, Hanju saw everything that happened to Xing Hongchuan through the doll. The system displayed information about the Elder of Enlightenment, 7th layer of integration, sect leader. Of Impermanence sect, highly respected. Because you are the husband of the person he favors, he holds a grudge against your disciple. If Xing Hongchuan refuses him, he will act against you to prevent future problems. Hanju deeply remembered these 5 words, sect leader of Impermanence sect. At this moment, thunder rumbled, and Zun Chang'an and the black-eyed chicken began a heated discussion. It looked up at the sky and noticed the heavenly thunder. Master is about to break through. Hanju endured the thunder tribulation and broke through without getting angry. The Elder of Enlightenment dares to touch my people. Is he seeking death? On his small notebook, in big letters, it read Elder of Enlightenment. Hanju read it word by word. Today, with the power of the thunder tribulation, I will curse the Elder of Enlightenment, 4 days and 4 nights. The thunder tribulation struck hard, releasing a tremendous force and dazzling light. From a distance, it was shocking because of the power of the thunder tribulation. People in the sect were thrilled. The god-slaying elder has broken through again. The true immortals, such as Jing Si, revered Hanju. The thunder tribulation was already far enough, yet its power still reached here. What level is he at? With the god-slaying elder, Yuking sect had flourished. The most important thing was that the elder had never abused his power and focused on cultivation, earning admiration. Li Changzi only said one sentence, you only need to know that you can always trust the strength of the god-slaying elder. The others unanimously agreed, that's right, the god-slaying elder will always be a god. Guan Wu sighed anxiously, I've been cultivating according to the god-slaying elder's method, but why is the gap growing bigger? He thought regretfully, is it because of talent differences? Maybe one day he can ascend and become an immortal. Elsewhere, a large pit was created by the thunder tribulation. Zhou Fan sighed, damn thunder tribulation, finally over. He crawled on the ground. The power of the heavenly thunder is still hard to resist. With my body, I barely withstood one bolt of it. At this moment, a person stood in front of Zhou Fan and asked, "How does it feel to be alive again?" Mo Fuqiang angrily said, "To resurrect your body, I spent quite a few treasures. Let's see if you dare to do this again next time." Zhou Fan bowed to the senior behind Mo Fuqiang. "Thank you, senior, for my rebirth. I am willing to share the burden and help the senior." Xian Shishir dismissed it as a small matter and casually said, "You saved me before, today was just repaying the favor." Zhou Fan and Mo Fuqiang exchanged puzzled glances, hearing about their vague memories from their past lives. She nonchalantly said, "It's still thanks to your past life's merits and good fortune. I was just going with the flow." After finishing, she waved and walked away. "This matter ends here. I'm leaving now." Zhou Fan and Mo Fuqiang still wanted to know Xian Shishir's Dao name. She only said one word, Xian. Then she disappeared into the air, leaving enough mystery for those left behind. Zhou Fan asked in confusion, "Is there a big shot in the cultivation world with the surname Xian?" Mo Fuqiang helplessly replied, "You ask me, I don't know either." Zhou Fan proudly boasted, "Now I'm at the 6th level of the nascent soul realm. No one can be faster than me." Mo Fuqiang sneered, "Stop changing the subject. I spent so many treasures, how are you going to compensate?" On Han Ju's side, his system updated with a series of messages showing that his good friend Zhou Fan was attacked and killed. But after being reborn, his cultivation increased greatly, his good friend got a great opportunity. His Dao progress advanced, and his divine pet was seriously injured but escaped danger. Upon seeing this series of messages, Han Ju only noticed that Zhou Fan had died and come back to life, truly the protagonist. The system reminded you again, informing you that you have successfully broken through to the integration stage. And you can choose from the following options. 1 is to immediately emerge from seclusion, showcase your strength to the world, obtain a spiritual treasure, and receive a divine power inheritance. The other is to continue humbly cultivating in seclusion, aiming to become the strongest in the world and obtain a genius treasure. Han Ju chose to continue cultivating in seclusion, distancing himself from the mortal world and obtaining a genius treasure. The system, congratulations, you have obtained the Earth Immortal Gourd Seed. Han Ju helplessly read the description of the item. It blooms in 1,000 years, bears fruit in 10,000 years, can be eaten or refined into a magic treasure, and with enough time, can form a magic treasure that gives birth to spiritual beings. 7 rainbow-colored gourds appeared in his mind. Bringing the 7 gourd babies out of the mountain seems like it wouldn't be impossible. His system information appeared, human phase, transcendent qualifications, 6-path spiritual body, containing top-tier spiritual roots. Luck will definitely increase. Han Ju, seeing his lifespan, was shocked. Not bad, kid, you've got years. Upon checking his cultivation method, which included various spells and treasures, Han Ju focused only on one, indeed, the 6 paths reincarnation technique. The higher the realm, the longer the lifespan. Thinking about this, Han Ju couldn't help but bang his head against the rock. If I cultivate to the Great Ascension stage, how long will my lifespan be? By then, I will definitely have time to cultivate Xiaoyao. Today, I am laying the foundation for the future Xiaoyao. At this time, Xing Hongwan had already emerged from the ancient secret realm and found Han Ju's residence. She bit her lip, recalling the things she had been forced and insulted by the Elder of Enlightenment. The black-eyed chicken hid in the distance and said with confusion, "Why is this woman back again?" Ko Chang'an, hearing this, also felt curious. "What does it have to do with you if she comes to see you?" The black-eyed chicken replied sternly, "Of course, I'm afraid she'll eat the master, but her condition seems off today." Ko Chang'an, hearing this, fell into a self-indulgent mood. "I know about this. Xiao Mei can sometimes act this way too." He started talking about his sad past and said angrily, "You wouldn't believe it, but before coming here, I was entangled with her for nearly 20 years. He began to reminisce. Xiao Mei's cultivation is ordinary, but her character is gentle and understanding. Many people pursued her like they were stepping over the doorstep. I was one of them, but I knew a toad couldn't eat swan meat, so I silently protected her. Ko Chang'an humbly only dared to secretly watch Xiao Mei and her boyfriend. Loving her means wanting her life to be happier. I originally planned to follow the principle of love whoever you love and often invite her boyfriend to dinner. He quietly spoke to the black-eyed chicken about the past. There were many people who even called me brother, and they communicated with and accompanied her. They encouraged me to keep going. I know their good intentions, but I still longed for her to accept me. Ko Chang'an, foolishly persistent, believed that Xiao Mei still came to him in times of trouble, proving that she had a little warmth for him, which made him unwilling to give up. What was even more surprising was Ko Chang'an's persistence, just taking her for an abortion 7 or 8 times already. I paid for all the expenses. She quickly found a new love, but I had already gotten used to it. By this point, Ko Chang'an still hadn't awakened and stubbornly believed, because she likes to keep the best things for last, I will definitely laugh in the end. He dejectedly realized, after sacrificing all these years, I only did it to make her understand one thing. Someone like me, a worthless dog, she will never love. She will only find someone else to be with. The black-eyed chicken was speechless, not knowing where to start with the insults. Ko Chang'an asked in confusion, "Chicken brother, you said that master has women finding him without him leaving the house. Why hasn't anyone come for me?" The black-eyed chicken casually replied, "I think it's a matter of perception." It laughed without hesitation, "Maybe it's because you're too pretty." After hearing this, his fragile heart shattered, and tears began to flow. Behind the mountain, Xing Hongwan sadly confided in Han Ju. "Husband, this is how it is." She couldn't help but cry. The Elder of Enlightenment is really too much. Han Ju agreed with Xing Hongwan. "As long as you're fine, he will eventually face retribution." However, some of the things he said were true. The overall strength of the martial general sect was far behind Yuking sect. Thinking of her, he advised, "The potential of Yuking sect is limited. Staying there too long will only slow your growth, but the martial general sect can help you see a broader world. If you agree to go, you might even encounter immortal opportunities." Xing Hongchuan was somewhat angry, but her heart was also mixed with thoughts of a young girl. "If I've already chosen my husband, then I should stay by his side for the rest of my life." Hanju comforted her and advised, "But you're not my subordinate, you should think more about yourself." Xing Hongchuan angrily pulled Hanju's face closer. As he was surprised, she domineeringly stared at him and seductively declared, "But I like it." Xing Hongchuan didn't want to leave Hanju and confidently confirmed, "My husband will definitely become an immortal, and I'm still waiting for the rooster and dog to ascend to heaven." Her voice was sweet, whispering and calling him husband. Hanju started to make excuses, not wanting to respond, "Don't do this, I need to upgrade your heavenly body." But Xing Hongchuan ignored him and continued. A few days later, the black-eyed chicken was worried and kept thinking, "Master won't be in trouble, right? He's been in seclusion for so long without coming out." Duan Chang'an, understanding the situation best, suggested, "How about we buy some seafood for master?" Meanwhile, on Mo Fuho and Zhou Fan's side, the two were roasting meat by the campfire. Zhou Fan promised, "Brother Han, next time I'll definitely avenge you." He was full of arrogance, fearless, and spoke boldly, "In the future, I plan to conquer the world. I want to be the best in the world." Mo Fuho's mind flashed back to the day Zhou Fan was rejected by his fiancée because he had no fame or power. He recalled her decisive departure, and he could only try to awaken Zhou Fan. "I know you're unwilling, but I feel like she only treated you as a backup." Unfortunately, Zhou Fan refused to awaken and remained stubborn. "Now I've reached the nascent soul stage. Even killed a transformation god. Who can compare to me? I want to prove to her that only I deserve her." Mo Fuho didn't respond but silently thought of someone and lightly replied, "The younger generation." "I thought of someone." Zhou Fan, while gnawing on meat, immediately understood, "You mean Han Ju, right?" He hurriedly defended himself. Cultivation is about continuously experiencing and seeking opportunities. Look at me, my cultivation skyrocketed. Suddenly, while my enemies are still struggling to advance but stagnated. I'm the most obvious example. Mo Fuho could only remain silent. He was a realist and tried to warn Zhou Fan, Brother Han has very high talent. To defeat him now, you'd need to at least reach the transformation god stage. After hearing this, Zhou Fan understood, the heavens don't answer, but you've already reminded me. Zhou Fan clenched his fist and firmly declared, if I ever return to Yuking sect, I will challenge Hanju and let him understand that harsh cultivation has no future. Filled with momentum, he confidently decided everything. At that time, I'll bring him along, the three of us will roam the world, and build our own reputation. It's going to be amazing. Mo Fuho wasn't as excited and silently muttered to himself, why do I have such a bad feeling about this? At Wuxiang sect, the waterfall was magnificent and grand. Dongfeng Xian was meditating in front of the waterfall. Wu Dao looked at his disciple's progress with satisfaction. Xianer has improved a lot in cultivation, this time she will surely be chosen by the celestial immortal mansion. Too bad I still couldn't deceive that woman in the end. He smiled maliciously, if I had her as the furnace, Xianer's cultivation would only get stronger. Suddenly, Wu Dao spat out a large mouthful of blood, causing Dongfeng Xian to open her eyes in panic. Seeing him fall, Dongfeng Xian quickly ran over and shouted, Master. Dongfeng Xian anxiously asked, Master, it's been a long time like this, do you know who did it? I'll go kill them. Qi Dao reassured him, I'm not sure, I couldn't calculate this matter. Don't worry, the curse isn't strong, I can still bear it. Focus on your cultivation and aim to master your divine abilities as soon as possible. Seeing that Dongfeng Xian finally agreed, he angrily thought, once my disciple succeeds in cultivation, I'll make sure you lose all face. Hanju sneezed when his name was mentioned, wondering, who's cursing me? Zun Chang'an, standing behind, curiously asked, what are you planting? He gave the task to someone to plant gourds, saying, you'll need to take care of it from now on. Zun Chang'an cleverly flattered, I can tell it's not simple, Master's treasures are plentiful. He couldn't help but ask, did our ancestors ever have any great figures? Hanju answered ambiguously, guess. In fact, he himself didn't know the origins of those divine abilities and treasures. Li Qingzi found Elder Han and started a conversation, long time no see, does your mountain have any new treasures? Hanju asked him, Sect Master, is there something you need? Li Qingzi invited him inside and said, the black-eyed chicken is always worried that the master will be eaten. After entering the room, Hanju got straight to the point, let's talk, did you fight with another demon king or did a sect's house catch fire again? Li Qingzi laughed cheerfully and said, it's not exactly a bad thing. He elaborated, we found the remains of an ancient sect near Yuking sect. According to the disciples' investigation, there are many resources, cultivation methods, treasures, talents, and magical tools inside. Hanju asked with concern, has this news spread? Such a great opportunity, if it gets out, it might lead to a scramble among the cultivators. Li Qingzi answered firmly, this is a secret of Yuking sect. Although 100 years have passed, the young cultivators have never heard of Elder Zhanshin's name, the leaders of the major sects still remember your heroic demeanor. Even if they no, they dare not stop Yuking sect's good fortune. Hanju focused on the key point, so why did you come to me? He warmly invited, Elder Han, would you like to go take a look? The elder has already brought 5 other elders and 100 excellent disciples to protect it, and the teleportation array will be ready soon. Hanju, knowing his intentions, said, you're afraid it's dangerous inside, so you want me to come as a laborer, right? Li Qingzi, embarrassed, asked, I couldn't hide it from Elder, so what do you think? He looked at the boiling teapot and began to reason, although Yuking sect has been developing steadily. Over the years, the disciples lack real training. Flowers in a greenhouse can't withstand the storm. The sect master knows this as well. This is indeed a good opportunity to let the disciples train. Hanju, full of righteous light, said, training the disciples' independence and improving the overall quality of Yuking sect's disciples, I will stay in the sect to protect it. Li Qingzi agreed with this reasoning but was still a bit hesitant. Hearing it from you, it somehow feels a little strange. As Han Ju sent him off, he still reminded him, be careful, such ruins often have restrictions. Li Qingzi understood and replied, if we find any genius treasures that can enhance spiritual energy, I'll send someone to bring them to you. As they just walked out of the cave, Li Qingzi suddenly saw something and couldn't help but speak out. Han Ju, noticing, asked curiously, Sect Master, is there something else? He hesitated, looking ahead. The Fusong tree was shaking violently, and Li Qingzi looked on in curiosity. Han Ju was surprised to see the tree shaking very strongly. It was shaking as if the entire tree was about to fall, as if moving to the rhythm of music. The black-eyed chicken and Zun Chang'an were panicked. Why is it shaking in the daytime too? Hope nothing happens, Master will definitely kill me. Han Ju hurriedly ran over, what's wrong? Hey Mu Ji and Zun Chang'an said in unison, we haven't done anything. This tree suddenly started twitching, and it was shaking by itself last night too. Upon hearing this, Han Ju was very surprised. It shakes by itself, has it become a spirit? He immediately opened his divine sense and took a quick scan. What surprised him even more was that he didn't detect a soul. Han Ju worriedly speculated, logically speaking. If it had become a spirit, it would have a consciousness and a soul. Is this Fusong tree summoning something? Suddenly, he saw that from the trunk to the treetop, the Fusong tree was covered with a layer of golden crow's light. Han Ju became even more concerned. The Fusong tree would only attract golden crows after living for 10,000 years, but the time hasn't reached 10,000 years yet. With this movement, is there a major change? The system's small window gathered all the information from across the world, and after browsing it, he concluded, there doesn't seem to be any major changes in the cultivation world. In a magnificent pavilion, the glow of the sunset was cast on the lake's surface, and the sky seemed to be dyed red. Xian Shishir took a sip of tea and asked, hasn't senior sister ascended yet? Xian Qingjun mysteriously replied, not yet, when will the plan proceed? Xian Shishir sighed and said helplessly, don't mention it, Zhou Fan is completely different from his past life, reckless as can be. Fortunately, the people over there already completely trust me. Xian Qingjun appeared very satisfied, he is the key in the plan, we can't let him die. She was filled with doubts, I really don't understand you. After ascending, you can transform and start anew. With your strength, you could dominate in the immortal realm. What are you waiting for? Xian Qingjun answered frankly, I'm waiting for my companion. As soon as she said this, Xian Shishir was so shocked that she spat out her tea. Seeing her junior sister suddenly cough, Xian Qingjun casually said, I was joking. Xian Shishir exclaimed loudly, you scared me to death. Senior sister, your love life is like picking wild vegetables for 20 years. Xian Qingjun then told the whole story. When I first arrived at Yuling Sect, I unexpectedly met a young man I was quite fond of. This guy is a cultivator who has been practicing for many years, and he may have already broken through to the spirit transformation stage. After hearing this, Xian Shishir was also surprised and asked, is his talent stronger than Zhou Fan's? Xian Qingjun nodded in confirmation. Her cheeks turned slightly red, if there's a chance, I'll take you to meet him. Xian Shishir felt it was a bit unreliable, senior sister, you're not lying to me, are you? Suddenly, a flash of golden light appeared, as if it were about to tear the sky apart. Something passed by at an incredible speed, creating massive waves on the water surface. Hearing the noise, Yang Tiandong and Tianqi were also surprised and looked back to search. He hurriedly asked Tianqi, foster father, what is this? Tianqi was too scared to speak. Originally a typical king-level demon of Tianqi, he was now trembling like a little dog, the son of the vermilion bird, disaster and misfortune. The son of the vermilion bird, golden all over, pounced fiercely. It's Judo, everyone is afraid of it. Judo was burning with flames all over and opened its blood-red mouth to pounce. Judo, also known as Huado, is a demon beast resembling a dog, capable of spewing and swallowing fire. Wherever it goes, disaster strikes. and it usually appears in great fires. Therefore, Judo is regarded as a harbinger of fire and symbolizes extreme misfortune. At this time, two girls were gathering herbs on a cliff, preparing to return as it was getting dark. One of the girls mumbled to herself, "Yao Mei, did you see anything strange?" She felt that the temperature was indeed unusual. It was almost winter, so why had it suddenly become so hot? The two of them looked up at the sky and saw two stars. They mistakenly thought they were burning flames and believed it was the sun, so they panicked and shouted, "Are these two suns?" At that moment, the sect leader and several of Yuling's sect's true disciples immediately flew over and issued a warning, "Enemies are attacking." Li Qingzi led the charge and shouted, "Which demon is this?" Several true disciples followed, echoing, "Such high temperatures, it's like a blazing sun, and it's heading towards Yuling's sect." Everyone couldn't help but worry, if it gets too close, could Yuling's sect be destroyed? As the leader of the sect, Li Qingzi decisively gave the order. Activate the protective formation. A magical formation started from the highest point of the sect and gradually covered all corners of the sect. As he gestured, the formation became more and more complex, and the protective formation had been activated. Han Ju was extremely anxious. The Yuling sect's protective formation could not withstand such high temperatures. At that moment, the system alerted him that the divine beast Judo was attacking and attempting to occupy the Fusong tree. It was a divine beast at the 5th level of the fusion realm, a son of the vermilion bird, born with an ominous aura. It possessed the sun's flames and could destroy the world. Hanju was greatly surprised. "It's for the Fusong tree. It's already too late." He prepared to fight Judo. He Muji and Zun Chang'an suddenly became restless. Hanju briefly explained, "It's just a bloodline effect. I'll be right back." He flew at an incredible speed, leaving only after images that dazzled He Muji. In a short time, Hanju had flown hundreds of miles. He Muji and Zun Chang'an shouted weakly, "Master, don't leave us behind." Judo roared wildly, furious and aggressive, charging recklessly. The sect leader and several true disciples couldn't even get close to Judo. The mountains were about to be burned away, and its true form was unclear. In this situation, it was difficult to strike. The last time they encountered something like this was when they appeared. Li Qingzi had to issue a strict order, "We can't let it get any closer. Everyone, listen up, use everything you have." He chanted a spell and shouted, "For Yuling sect." All the elders and true disciples immediately took action. At this moment, Hanju had caught up and shouted loudly, "Stop. Prevent the impending disaster." He quickly gave an order, "You are no match for it. Quickly lead the Yuling sect disciples to retreat." Everyone thought, the god-slaying elder has also appeared, so the opponent must be very strong. Li Qingzi was surprised and said, "I thought you had already escaped." Hanju helplessly responded, "Honestly, I wish I could escape, but I caused all of this." As he summoned his weapon, he continued, "I can't let the people of Yuling sect suffer the consequences for me." A green-edged longsword appeared in Hanju's hand. "Go quickly, I will buy time for you." Li Qingzi quickly nodded in agreement. He loudly shouted to everyone, "Hurry up, don't waste the opportunity Elder Han has bought for us." At this moment, Judo had lost its sanity, with only its obsession with the Fusong tree left in its mind. Suddenly, seeing Hanju blocking the way, Judo was very surprised. But it immediately spouted a ball of blazing fire, threatening him to get out of the way. Hanju said nothing and directly used the heavenly hammer ghostly sword, attempting to cut through the fire. With one slash, it seemed to contain the entire Milky Way, easily blocking Judo's sunfire. After being knocked back by the sword's energy, it became even more frantic than before. Even Hanju was pushed back by the shockwave from the previous attack. The system alerted, "Judo, the divine beast, harbors hatred toward you. The current hatred value is 5 stars." He pondered for a long time. Clearly, it's at the 5th level of the fusion realm, more difficult to deal with than even the Tao Enlightenment old monsters. This might be the extraordinary power of a divine beast. At that moment, Judo prepared to spit fire again, and Hanju felt that something was wrong. It quickly spewed the fire of disaster, intending to burn everything to the ground. Hanju gently dodged the incoming pillar of flames. But when the flames burned the forest, Hanju suddenly realized, this isn't a simulated training ground. The back is the Qingyun sect. He didn't expect that mentioning the Qingyun sect would shift Zhu Dou's attention. Zhu Dou chased after Hanju's swift figure, and wherever it went, flames spread. Li Qingzi quickly led the disciples to evacuate, heading toward the water spirit pool, where the teleportation array was still open. Hanju encouraged himself, I can't go on like this. The attacks are too intense, and I can't find a breakthrough. But sensing the danger, he scanned his surroundings, only to realize, this is bad. In its confusion, Zhu Dou noticed Hanju's teleportation. It slightly breathed fire, aiming directly at him. Hanju looked at the scorched earth before him and thought to himself, the person who obstructed me should have already gone to meet the king of hell. Suddenly, a sword pointed directly at its neck, and Zhu Dou was greatly shocked. It turned out that Hanju had dodged in time, sighing inwardly, this Zhu Dou is too fat. The heavenly hammer ghostly sword can only damage its fur. There's no time to use the remaining ultimate moves. Turning around, he suddenly realized, Zhu Dou left? No, from its momentum, it's gathering power for a big move. Hanju felt it was a coincidence, as he also had ultimate moves left unused. The two ultimate moves collided, producing a massive shockwave that shook the heavens and earth. Hanju and Zhu Dou fought fiercely with all their might, a battle of life and death. Meanwhile, Li Qingzi was still focused on directing the evacuation, form a line, don't crowd. Suddenly, the Grand Elder appeared and said, it's over. Li Qingzi asked in surprise, why did the master say that? He calmly said, didn't you notice the temperature has dropped a lot? The elder nodded after hearing this, it certainly isn't as hot as before. The entire sect rejoiced, it's Elder Han, he has saved us again. When the two great ultimate moves collided earlier, Zhu Dou was consumed in the process. The son of the vermilion bird was torn to pieces and scattered by the wind. Hanju breathed a sigh of relief, in battles between experts, even a small mistake can be fatal. The system prompted, due to your first kill of a divine beast, you have gained a swordsmanship inheritance. Congratulations on obtaining the heaven and earth mysterious yellow breaking world sword finger divine ability. The strength and range of the sword chi depend on the user's cultivation level. After a moment of joy, the system displayed more information. The divine beast Juke is naturally fortunate, but since you killed its offspring, it now harbors a deep hatred for you. When you ascend, it will surely find a way to take revenge on you. Seeing that the vermilion bird's cultivation level was at the mid-stage of the Tai Earth Immortal Realm, Hanju was shocked, his jaw dropping. He angrily cursed, what's wrong with you? You can't even manage your dead child, and now you blame me? Don't you know how many lives Zhu Dou has destroyed in your heart? The level of hatred reached 5 stars. Hanju angrily said, you beat the young one and still want the elder to take the blame? Why wait until I ascend to take revenge on me? Can't the vermilion bird descend? He thought in silence, it looks like in the future, if I want to ascend, I need to be stronger than the vermilion bird, otherwise, it's a one-way road to death. The heavenly realm is too chaotic. Hanju looked at Zhu Dou's shattered body and considered how to handle it. Since the vermilion bird has already discovered it, there's no need to destroy the body. Li Qingzi hurriedly ran over and asked, Elder Han, what kind of monster was that son? Hanju thought, if I say it's a divine beast, it might ruin their worldview. To avoid involving Yuqing sect, he had to lie, it was just a demonic dog. Li Qingzi was surprised, how could that be? The energy was so terrifying, and it specifically targeted Yuqing sect? Hanju immediately shifted the blame to the ancestor, could it be that the 9 cauldrons ancestor offended someone? Li Qingzi thought it made sense, if it's the ancestor's grudge, then it's easy to explain. I'll check the ancestor's diary when I get back. He asked Hanju, do you need someone to handle the scene? But Hanju refused, these things will make good food for Xiao He. At this time, the 9 cauldrons was framed by Hanju, sneezing repeatedly and questioning life. Afterward, a story spread that when Zhu Do swept through Dian, it caused widespread panic among millions of creatures. However, Zhu Do, despite its strength, suddenly disappeared from Dian, creating a mystery for later generations. The place where it vanished belonged to Yuqing sect, and Yuqing sect immediately became the center of attention. All sects dared not show hostility and could only focus on making alliances, trying their best to avoid making enemies. Tianzu let out a sigh of relief while holding a newspaper. Luckily, we've established relationships. I could tell Yuqing sect was no ordinary place. My God, that was Zhu Do. Many rogue cultivators, hearing the great name of Yuqing sect, happily rushed over. Yuqing sect's strength steadily increased, and it seemed to be on par with the West Yuan continent of Dawei. Li Changzi was again confined by Hanju, with prior notice, "Don't come looking for me about opportunities. I won't go." He pleaded with Hanju, "This time, it's not a good thing." Li Changzi began to explain, "The blood flame heavenly gate of Dawei and the Wuxiang sect of Gaian continent are at war. They ignored Dian and West Yuan continent and directly started battling." He laid out his thoughts. "Although I don't know why they are doing this, our Dian might be implicated." Hanju was speechless. "They can start a war from so far away. Do they have nothing better to do? Both of these sects have had conflicts with me before." Li Qingzi explained, "I heard that the genius of Wuxiang sect, Dongfeng Xian, killed the son of the blood flame heavenly gates sect master." He excitedly described, "How could the blood flame heavenly gates people bear it? They directly declared war. There were rumors that a guest elder at the Unity Realm led the charge and killed members of Wuxiang sect." Han Ju didn't care, "Let them fight among themselves. As long as they don't threaten Yuqing sect, it's fine." Li Qingzi turned around and whispered, "When did Yuqing sect have a powerhouse in the Unity Realm?" But he didn't know that the powerhouse from the Unity Realm was standing right in front of him. At this point, Li Qingzi stopped beating around the bush and got to the point. "Elder Han, do you remember the ancient sect ruins?" It turned out that at that time, Guan Yugong led the exploration of the ruins, and the elders discovered a huge secret there. There were still people alive there. It was an old man who was blind, Li Qingzi narrated. "I don't know what happened to Elder Guan, but he accidentally the seal on that person. He seemed to have been asleep for thousands of years, his strength unfathomable. Luckily, he didn't attack, otherwise, Elder Guan wouldn't have been able to stop him." Li Qingzi shared his thoughts. Being able to survive after being sealed for so long is definitely not simple. "We wanted to win him over, but he refused. Can you help us persuade him?" Hanju didn't immediately agree, asking, "Where is he now?" The response was, "In the inner sect city." He showed a mysterious expression. "This matter is important. Let me investigate his past first, then I'll decide." Li Qingzi praised, "Elder Han is truly capable. In fact, he had learned the information from the system. The person is called Xiao Jiao, in the 9th layer of the Kongming realm, a celestial talent, the only survivor from the heavenly immortal mansion 5,000 years ago, once part of the ancient Lingxiao sect, who became blind due to heavenly punishment." Han Ju wondered, with such a top-tier background, how is he not naturally fortunate? So he asked Li Qingzi about Lingxiao sect. Li Qingzi immediately said, "I heard that it was a major sect 5,000 years ago, but they offended the celestial gods, and as a result, they were struck by heavenly punishment, and the entire sect was destroyed." "So what does this have to do with that blind old man?" Hanju calmly denied, "It has a huge connection. That blind old man is the only survivor of Lingxiao sect." Li Qingzi's expression changed when he heard this. "If we keep him here, aren't we going against the will of heaven?" He quickly thought of a countermeasure. "How about I personally handle it and drive him away?" Hanju bluntly said, "He is in the 9th layer of the Kongming realm." Li Qingzi hurriedly went to remind Guan Yugong not to do anything foolish. Hanju then ordered, "For now, let him stay at Yuqing sect. I'll go see him when I have time." Hanju etched Xiao Jiao's name deep into his mind and decided to use the simulation battlefield to see the strength of the heavenly immortal mansion's #1 genius. The advantage of the simulation battlefield is that every move of the enemy can be performed to the fullest. They won't be scared or run away, which allows you to better understand the true level of the enemy. The habit of attacking in extreme conditions, without considering the variables in actual combat, makes defeating a robot much harder than defeating a real person. Based on his previous experience, Hanju guessed that Xiao Jiao's first move would be his signature move. He used the divine ability Heavenly Army's 10,000 horses split to create hundreds of clones. Xiao Jiao's clones all rushed towards Hanju, astonishing him with their ninja-like performance. He looked at the divine ability, seeing over 10,000 clones in the Kongming realm, and thought, how should I fight? Hanju cursed, damn, I thank you on behalf of Yuqing sect for not killing me. He also sarcastically remarked to Guan Yugong, look at the good things you've done. In the ghost-seeing Cho Canyon, the sheer cliffs sent a chill down one's spine. A bloody and chaotic battle had just taken place here, with bodies scattered everywhere, but the hunt was still ongoing. What kind of existence could this be? Su Qi knelt on the ground in fear, thinking to herself, the elite troops of the Demon Witch sect were annihilated just like that. The little boy trembled and said, Senior, I am just an ordinary person. Su Qi dropped her weapon and knelt, stammering as she pleaded with the purple light, please spare my life. The demon lord appeared before her, arrogantly saying, if I wanted to kill you, you would have been dead long ago. His eyes contained the entire universe as he tempted Su Qi, letting you live until now is already a stroke of fortune, do you understand? Su Qi's eyes shrank with fear as she heard the demon lord mention the word fortune. Su Qi was lost in thought, slowly pondering the word fortune that the demon lord had mentioned. The little boy asked in confusion, does the senior want to pass on an ultimate skill to me? The demon lord teased, if you are willing to help me fulfill a wish, I will pass on an ultimate skill to you, what's the problem? The demon lord extended his hand to invite Su Qi, you are quite lucky, I can't even calculate your fate, maybe you can inherit my mantle. Su Qi panicked instantly, inherit the senior's mantle? But I already have a master, how do I refuse? The little boy dared not directly refuse, Senior, if you say so, I will definitely help you fulfill it. The demon lord said bluntly, I want to bloodily wash the world, will you help me? Su Qi trembled, Senior, are you joking? I fear I can't help. The little boy thought to himself, bloodily washing the world, how dare you even think about it? The demon lord looked at Su Qi seriously with a single eye, do you think I'm joking? I never misjudge people, you indeed have this kind of talent. At this moment, on the simulation battlefield, Xiao Hao's necklace beads had already broken. He also spat out a mouthful of blood from the shock, looking like he was about to collapse. Hanju was charging forward, gaining the upper hand as Xiao Hao found himself in a disadvantageous situation. He quietly assessed Xiao Hao, as expected of the #1 genius of the heavenly immortal mansion. He can still push even the Unity realm to this point. This alone is enough for him to be proud of. Despite this assessment, Hanju's speed of attack did not slow down in the slightest, executing move after move. The simulation match lasted for 89 minutes, but he was still not satisfied, let's try again. In the following attempts, Hanju worked to shorten the time to 23 minutes, but Xiao Hao summoned clones. On the 5th try, he used only 3 minutes, but Hanju was still dissatisfied. No, 3 minutes would be enough to bring down Yuqing sect. He used the divine ability he gained after defeating Zhou heavenly yellow sword breaking finger. Hanju thought to himself in frustration, almost forgot this move. On the 7th attempt, he used just 2 seconds to turn Xiao Hao into dust. Ultimately, Hanju felt satisfied. He had to admit, it was indeed a battle of stamina, but if it were a real situation, I might have just used my ultimate move as soon as we met. Strike first and it would be resolved. At this moment, the system window popped up displaying the latest news. There was more interesting news outside, but the most eye-catching was the news about your pet, black-eyed chicken, devouring the bloodline of the divine beast Jojo and mutating, gaining catastrophic luck. Hanju was surprised to find that Xiao He had evolved. At this moment, the black-eyed chicken still didn't know, as it chewed on Chudo's flesh, freeze-dried meat. The master did a great job. I don't think there's anything more delicious in the world than this. seeing it eating so happily and planning to keep some for the new year. Hanju hesitated. Should I tell it that this is the meat of a divine beast? Tua Chang'an rushed over in a hurry. Master, it's not good, the hibiscus tree is moving again. He sighed helplessly. This time, the hibiscus tree did not shake wildly like before, but instead swayed gently, seeming a bit seductive. Tua Chang'an had no choice but to comment, at least this time the tremors aren't as big, much better than last time. The black-eyed chicken interjected, but a moving tree is never normal. Hanju was very tired. Trouble follows trouble. Last time I killed Chudo and offended Juke. Who did I offend this time? Can't it just be a little more obedient? Tua Chang'an, experienced, offered his opinion. Master, don't you think it looks like it's in heat? Hanju quickly understood. The hibiscus tree can attract Chudo and Jin Wu. It must have its uses, and they both share the characteristic of being fire element divine beasts. Does the hibiscus tree need a high-level fire element bloodline? It shouldn't be a symbiotic relationship. What shocked them was the black-eyed chicken's words. I won't hide it from the master, I don't know why recently, but I feel like it's trying to seduce me. Concerned that the master might be unhappy, it dared not continue. Hanju realized, between the tree and the bird, Chudo is a divine beast, and the black-eyed chicken is the reincarnation of a demon saint. Its identity is also quite remarkable. He suddenly understood. Little Black has eaten Chudo, and his blood contains part of Chudo. Maybe it can satisfy the hibiscus tree. Hanju quickly agreed. It's natural for a phoenix to perch on a tree, but it must build its own nest. He thought carefully. If the black-eyed chicken occupies the hibiscus tree, other demon birds and divine beasts won't come. After finishing the nest, the black-eyed chicken was very satisfied, feeling refreshed. Its face was also filled with pride, and Hanju was happy because the hibiscus tree no longer shook. But Tua Chang'an still felt uneasy. Why does it seem like when Chicken Brother is on top, the tree just stops moving? Suddenly, someone came to the door. This place is rich in spiritual energy. Cultivating to become an immortal mountain is definitely not wrong. You must be the strongest god-slaying elder, right? It turned out that the person who came was Chudo, the famous genius of the sect from 5,000 years ago. The black-eyed chicken and Tua Chang'an were both surprised, completely unaware he had arrived. Hanju, however, remained calm. Fellow Taoist, what brings you here? Chudo explained his intention. The sect master has always invited me to join the sect, but my situation is a bit special. Let's do this. If you can withstand a single strike from me, I will join your Yuqing sect. He only made one request. If Hanju could endure his strike, he would be willing to join. Tua Chang'an privately commented, this is too arrogant. The black-eyed chicken was also a little worried. Didn't the master always say this phrase? Why has the situation reversed now? Hanju smiled on the outside but thought completely differently inside. I didn't seek you out, yet you came looking for me. Chudo sneered, not needing him, and jumped up, preparing to strike with his palm in the air. A palm strike hit Hanju's chest, and he was unprepared, still in a daze. He was somewhat shaken, unable to react to what was happening in front of him. The black-eyed chicken and Tua Chang'an anxiously called out, Master. The surroundings fell silent, and Chudo couldn't help but wonder, the spiritual energy in my palm is still there, why can't it be directed? The spiritual energy in my palm is still there, why can't it enter? The atmosphere was very strange, making Xiao Jiao ponder, what exactly is this person's background? How does he have so many spiritual treasures? After thinking for a while, he placed his hand on Hanju's chest. Hanju awkwardly said, Senior, please show some respect. He explained coldly, I just wanted to probe your cultivation, but I can't determine your true realm. If you've already worn so many spiritual treasures, then I won't hold back. I will go all out. Hanju coldly stared at him. A 9th level of the Dongxi realm wants to go all out? Are you here to spar, or to kill? After thinking for a moment, he added, if I can take your move, will you really join Yuqing sect and listen to the sect master? Xiao Jiao said straightforwardly, I've never broken a promise. Indeed, I need a place to stay, and I have a good impression of Yuqing sect. Hanju stood calmly, inviting him to make his move. Then I'll be impolite. He immediately used his inner force, gathering it in the palm of his hand, as if he controlled every gust of wind in his palm. Spiritual energy materialized and was absorbed by Xiao Jiao. The black-eyed chicken and Zun Chang'an said in fear, "The suction is so strong, it even affects the sky." Everything was concealed by the spiritual light emanating from Xiao Jiao's palm. Although he couldn't be seen, it was clear that he was unafraid. In the eyes of outsiders, the strongest person in Yuqing sect is just in the Huashan realm. He pondered, he's so confident in accepting the challenge, could he be in the Dongxi realm? A full-force Dongxi realm palm strike hit Hanju's chest, making a dull thudding sound. A booming sound echoed, like two giant mountains colliding. The impact force blew everything around them away. Zun Chang'an was blown into the sky, and the black-eyed chicken's plump body was also pushed away. The trees around them were knocked over by the strong wind, and leaves scattered and fluttered in the air. In the center of the battle, Xiao Jiao fell beside the fallen ancient tree. He shouted in fear, "He's a Heping realm cultivator." He didn't expect it, a sect without even a Dongxi realm cultivator would have someone in the Heping realm. Hanju stood firmly like Mount Tai, speaking gently, "Does what I said just now still count?" Xiao Jiao sat up and said, "A gentleman's word is his bond. From now on, I'm a member of Yuqing sect." Suddenly, the system reminded him, "Xiao Jiao has just developed a positive impression of you, current favorability is 1 star. Hanju helplessly said, "I hope you don't reveal anything about my cultivation." Xiao Jiao suddenly looked up and asked, "Doesn't everyone in Yuqing sect know?" Hanju looked up at the clear blue sky and sighed, "If my cultivation is too high, I worry the sect will use me to provoke others. Besides immortality, I have no other pursuits, and only a few know about my cultivation." Xiao Jiao couldn't help but think with regret, such a mindset is truly rare. If the Lingyi sect had been half as humble back then, they wouldn't have met their demise. Hanju clasped his hands together in respect and bid farewell to Xiao Jiao, who also showed him absolute respect. After he left, the black-eyed chicken couldn't help but wonder, why didn't the master teach him a lesson? Didn't he stab you with a sword? Hanju angrily retorted, "If I stabbed you with a sword, would you dare take it?" It pretended to be cute, saying, "Look at how adorable I am, how could the master bear to harm me?" Hanju was even angrier, why has this guy become so arrogant recently? Seeing it happily gnawing on meat, Hanju said, "I must remind you, the situation is not looking good right now. That person just now was cursed by the immortal gods. Did you see the look in his eyes? That's the curse of the immortal gods." Upon hearing this, the black-eyed chicken screamed in fear, "The curse of the immortal gods?" Hanju coldly looked at it, "That's right, it's unavoidable. Everywhere is equally dangerous, so don't get too complacent. Also, I didn't want to tell you, but the snack you're eating was made from Chudo's body. That was the child of the divine beast Juke. Didn't you notice that the changes in your body are all granted by the divine beasts?" Hanju set the tone, making it break into a cold sweat, "So you need to work hard to become stronger, otherwise, Juke will come to seek revenge on you. I suspect Juke has already developed a grudge against us. So I must go into seclusion to cultivate." After saying that, Hanju turned and left, leaving the black-eyed chicken panic-stricken, nearly in tears. After calming down, with tears and sadness, it wrapped up the remaining dried meat and fed it to the dog, forgetting that Zun Chang'an hadn't been rescued yet. The next day, in Yuqing sect, the originally spacious road was now filled with a dense crowd of cultivators. Birds scattered and flew in all directions, as if responding. The sect master smiled brightly, seemingly discovering a treasure, and introduced, "Let's welcome the newly joined Dongxi realm elder of Yuqing sect, Xiao Jiao." Upon hearing the introduction, everyone couldn't help but exclaim, "This is the realm only the ancestors have reached." The square was packed with people, all eagerly jumping to welcome him. Many disciples thought to themselves, "I must hurry and bring gifts to curry favor with Elder Xiao Jiao." Li Qingzi smiled widely, after all, Elder Xiao Jiao agreed to join Yuqing sect only after passing by Elder Han. Truly, Elder Han is the pillar of our sect. Who would have known that Yuching sect was once just a small sect in the corner of Dian? Who would have known that Elder Han was once an inconspicuous medicine servant, an outer disciple in name only? I can only say that the day Elder Han decided to join Yuching sect was the luckiest day in the sect's history. He said with emotion, without Elder Han, there would be no present-day Yuching sect. The celebratory atmosphere of Yuching sect stood in sharp contrast to the death battle on the other side, where corpses lay scattered all around. A man slowly walked forward, sighing softly, 5 years, it's been 5 years. Senior brother. We've lost again. Lu Bumi was indifferent, while Qing Xian remained silent beside him. His face was covered in scars, and he looked desperately up at the sky. This is so hard. Where did the guest elder of the Heping realm go to heal his wounds? Lu Bumi, in despair, continued, Wuxiang sect has expanded to Dawei, devouring everything in its path. Our blood flame heaven gate is finished. Suddenly, Qing Xian remembered something and blurted out, not necessarily. Junior brother, why don't we surrender? Lu Bumi was stunned, surrender? We have deep blood feuds with Wuxiang sect. Even if we surrender to them, they won't spare us. Qing Xian explained, we're not surrendering to Wuxiang sect. We're surrendering to Yuching sect. At this point, he looked relieved, as if he had grasped a lifeline. Lu Bumi was greatly shocked. After careful consideration, Qing Xian said, we can rely on Yuching sect, as long as we ensure to cultivate in a righteous sect. It's not uncommon in the cultivation world to affiliate with other forces. He slowly persuaded, think about it. The sects surrounding Dawei are weaker than our blood flame heaven gate. The big sects that could suppress Wuxiang sect are far away, and only Yuching sect is the closest option. Lu Bumi hesitantly asked, is Yuching sect stronger than Wuxiang sect? Can it withstand their attacks? A figure of Hanju suddenly flashed through Qing Xian's mind, and he firmly said, if it's Yuching sect, maybe it can really resist. The person being missed is relaxing outside, having just finished a period of closed-door cultivation. Hanju looked around and felt very at ease seeing the Fuso tree, no longer flaunting itself under the protection of the black-eyed chicken. The Fuso tree and the earth immortal gourd over there were both growing well, and with the spiritual energy of Zun Cheng'an continuously cultivating into a mortal mountain, the speed of improvement kept accelerating. Life was still so beautiful, and Hanju happily and peacefully enjoyed it. After this closed-door cultivation, he had reached the 3rd level of the integration realm. Just as he opened his mouth to yawn and hadn't had time to close it, the system suddenly popped up a notification. The screen was full of familiar figures. Chaos Heavenly Dog, Zhou Fan, Mo Fuchio, and Immortal Shiquan were about to transcend. It seems everyone is doing well. Looking at Xiao Ju, still cursed by the immortal gods, Hanju felt a bit worried. If Yuching sect takes in Xiao Ju, will it cause trouble for me? However, what worried Hanju even more was the notification that read, Su Qi's cultivation of demonic skills has started to awaken. The bad luck is already scary enough, how exaggerated will it be after awakening? But, all things considered, Su Qi was truly pitiful. Everyone around him died because of him, but he didn't know he was the root cause. The heavenly court sent him to the mortal world, erasing his memories from the past life, allowing him to cause chaos. Even Zhou Dou's disgraceful behavior, they didn't care, almost as if they were tacitly allowing it. The heavenly court doesn't seem to have the righteous image as rumored. We haven't seen anything good, yet the bad things come so quickly. What exactly are they plotting? In the end, Hanju concluded, is it because the population of the mortal world is too large? Do they want to control it a bit? Just as Hanju was thinking about trivial matters, in the main hall of Yuching sect, the sect master shouted in disbelief, what? The atmosphere in the hall was very tense. Li Qingzi probed, is it a representative from the blood flame heavenly gate here to surrender? Is this true? The sect master refused, your sect and the Wuchang sect are at war, and Yuching sect does not want to be involved in this conflict. The elder beside him whispered, they want us to be their backing. The old man continued to propose the benefits, if Yuching sect agrees, Blood Flame Heavenly Gate can be completely merged into Yuqing sect, becoming the 19th peak of the sect. This caused the elders to discuss among themselves. They all felt that if Yuqing sect could annex Blood Flame Heavenly Gate, it would soar, but if they merged with Blood Flame Heavenly Gate, who would stop Wuchang sect? The representative here was Immortal Yanlin, and he thought the sect master's decision was strange. Yuqing sect is so weak, what's the reason? Only one low-level divine transformation, and the other people's combined nascent soul cultivation is not enough to pose a threat, except for the masked person standing in the corner. At this moment, the sect master stood up and said, "Sect Master Xiaoju, please properly entertain our guest. I need to discuss this with Sect Master Han." Yanlin secretly thought in disgust, the sect has no strength, and the sect master doesn't even have an opinion. What are the sect master and Immortal Qingfeng thinking, wanting to rely on such a sect? Xiaoju suddenly approached, interrupting his thoughts. "I remember 5,000 years ago I attended the grand opening ceremony of the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate. How did you end up like this?" "Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Since we're both sect masters, why don't we spar?" Currently, Xiaoju displayed a cultivation level of the first layer of Golden Core. Yanlin knew Xiaoju was hiding his cultivation and was deliberately pretending to be at the Golden Core stage to catch him off guard and then take the opportunity to ambush him. Such small tricks won't fool me. I can tell you are at the first layer of void transformation. In Hanju's cave, upon hearing this information, he was greatly surprised. The sect master asked in confusion, "What do you think?" Hanju thought for a moment and said, "This action will definitely offend Wuchang sect. Although you're not afraid of the Daoin site old freak, I'm still worried about someone stronger than him." He asked Li Qingzi with some concern, "How is Yuqing sect's strength now? Can it fight against Wuchang sect?" The sect master answered dejectedly, "It's difficult. In fact, from ancient times until now, disciples from Wuchang sect have been intruding into the borders of Great Yen. Yuqing sect's disciples have fought them many times, losing more than winning. They've even sent many Void Realm powerhouses to occupy Great Yen. In the end, we had to rely on Elder Zhao Jiao to suppress them." Hanju frowned, his face filled with killing intent as he thought, "Has that old monster set his sights on me? He shouldn't know that I've been secretly cursing him behind the scenes." After thinking for a while, he said, "That also means we have no choice. If Wuchang sect annexes Great Wei, Yuqing will be the next target." The sect master agreed. Suddenly, sounds of fighting reached their ears, catching both of their attention. Two beams of light streaked across the sky, and Li Qingzi suddenly realized, that's Zhao Jiao and Yanlin. Why are they fighting? Hanju reassured, "It's nothing, I think they're just testing each other." In the sky, Elder Zhao Jiao looked calm, chanting a spell while rapidly chasing Yanlin. The bald old man, who had just been cursing in his mind, now had a swollen face but still didn't let go of his words. "It's the 9th layer of the Void Realm. What are you pretending to be? Who taught you these tricks to hide your strength?" Seeing this, the sect master felt that Hanju's words were wrong. He really couldn't see it as a test but rather a one-sided beating. The sky was lit up with the light of magical power clashing, and Hanju stunned the sect master again. Zhao Jiao hasn't even used his full strength yet. Turning to Yanlin, who looked so disheveled he could hardly be recognized by his parents, he was forced to use his strongest move. He summoned a massive fire serpent, and Zhao Jiao stood before it, appearing tiny, yet he showed no fear. Calmly, he raised his hand, gathering spiritual energy into his fingertips, pointing to the sky and chanting a spell. At that moment, Zhao Jiao created countless clones, surrounding Yanlin in the middle. Li Qingzi, witnessing the duel between the two masters, couldn't help but panic, while Hanju seemed more relaxed. Smiling, if Yuqing sect really wants to annex Blood Flame Heavenly Gate, they must suppress them first. Otherwise, even if Blood Flame Heavenly Gate merges now, they might still harbor thoughts of rebellion in the future. After hearing this, the sect master hesitated a bit but accepted it. Watching the fierce battle in the sky, Hanju thought, "It seems Zhao Jiao shares the same thoughts as me." After the battle ended, Yanlin had lost a tooth and still couldn't understand why it turned out like this. He was covered in wounds, holding his fists in a salute to take his leave, and spoke a sentence that made him cough up blood, clearly in great pain. The sect master couldn't help but feel pity and asked, "Are you okay?" Yen Lin, beaten down to nothing but his pants, could only reply, "It's fine, you don't need to worry." After he walked far away, the sect master hurriedly asked Han Ju, "Look at him now. What if Blood Flame Heavenly Gate doesn't come?" Han Ju answered firmly, "If they come to Yuqing sect for protection, then they should have a humble attitude." Suddenly, the system popped up a reminder. "A person with innate luck has been detected, would you like to check their background?" Han Ju paused for a moment. "I didn't expect to meet such a strange person." The information then appeared. His name is Morong Chi, a 4th layer golden core cultivator, titled Miao Jin Shin Di. After being besieged, he reincarnated as a mortal, but his talent is peerless. He was drawn to Yuqing sect by the ancient spiritual ginseng. This information was quite interesting to Han Ju. Meanwhile, the scene on the other side was bustling, with the crowd happily moving forward. Guan Yu Gang enthusiastically introduced, "Yuqing sect has been established for 1,000 years." He kept speaking poetically. "The mountains and waters within the Yuqing sect's gates are beautiful, with fragrant flowers and rare herbs. It's the top choice for scattered cultivators seeking to join an established sect." Suddenly, someone curiously asked, "Elder Guan Yu, is that mountain also part of Yuqing sect?" Following the direction the person pointed, a towering mountain had a large inscription, "Endless striving to become an immortal." Guan Yu Gang immediately replied, "That is the mountain of the god-slaying elder of Yuqing sect. You must not trespass, or you will be expelled immediately." Hearing this, Morong Chi became even more certain of his judgment. "This is it. What I'm looking for must be on that mountain. My intuition is never wrong." He continued to inquire, "Does the god-slaying elder take disciples?" Guan Yu Gang answered, "He has taken disciples before, but before that there was a monk." Before Guan Yu could finish his sentence, he raised his hand to set the tone. The disciple had to kneel at the foot of the mountain for 5 years before he could succeed in becoming his student. "If you have the determination, you can try." These words shocked everyone, who were left in disbelief. As the crowd continued towards their next destination, Morong Chi remained lost in thought. Kneeling for 5 years? For that thing, kneeling for 5 years is nothing. After a moment, he made up his mind, "Elder Guan, I'm not going back. I've decided to stay here and become the disciple of the god-slaying elder." This statement shocked everyone. Elsewhere, Zun Chang'an, who was weaving, suddenly sneezed, faintly sensing that something bad was about to happen. 2 months later, life continued as usual. Suddenly, a purple light shone from the distance, causing everyone to be stunned. A murmur of discussion arose. Purple clouds? Has someone comprehended the ancient sword path? However, the people of Yuqing sect had long been used to this and could only blankly wonder, could it be him again? Sure enough, Han Ju's body radiated a blazing golden light, and the power core in his chest was gradually forming. Han Ju slowly opened his eyes. A new understanding has come. The heavenly Tao's mysterious yellow breaking boundary finger is truly unfathomably profound. The space in front of him stretched infinitely, with some blurry figures around him, which made him exclaim, "Is this the river of sword Tao? Wait, I'm just reviewing my sword technique, how did I end up here?" Han Ju looked around in confusion. Could it be that I'm encountering that person again? He noticed everyone was moving. It seems my comprehension of the sword path has deepened. The higher the realm, the further one can go. I wonder if I've made a breakthrough. Suddenly, Han Ju sensed something unusual and immediately looked down to check. At this moment, he realized he was speeding ahead rapidly, overtaking everyone. What's going on? Why can't I stop? The speed was so fast that the figures around him blurred. Han Ju confusedly asked himself, how did I overtake so many people in an instant? He reached a conclusion. Could it be that my sword path comprehension has become immeasurable? At this moment, Han Ju was completely panicked. He shouted loudly, I can't feel my limbs, I can't stop. If he finds out, it's over. As he struggled to break, suddenly a beam of light appeared in front of him. A phantom appeared and immediately began angrily cursing. It's you again. I already gave you a chance last time, don't push your luck. Hanju could only wipe away his tears and snot, explaining, I didn't mean to offend you, senior, I just can't stop myself. Before he could finish speaking, his figure was sent flying, with only his cries for help echoing. Upon seeing this, the senior helplessly said, I've guarded the way of the sword for many years, but this is the first time I've seen someone comprehend so quickly. In front of Hanju was the Tai realm. He twisted his face in despair and shouted, I'm about to enter. Suddenly, something yanked his body, while his eyes and mouth continued to express fear, still being dragged forward. It turned out that the phantom senior had stopped him. Hanju's face was still pressed against the ground. But he quickly expressed his gratitude, thank you, senior. I can never repay this great kindness. The phantom senior was puzzled, clearly, you have no past life, so how can you have such swordsmanship comprehension? For others. Each step is difficult, but you can't stop it all. It seems like the way of the sword is actively trying to force it into you. Upon hearing past life, Hanju quickly said, everything has a beginning, perhaps in the future, I will become someone else's past life. The senior didn't understand and could only sigh, forget it, the matter of reincarnation is beyond anyone's control. The phantom senior explained, with your current strength, the Tai realm is beyond your control. Otherwise, you'll face backlash. Go back now. After saying that, he extended his hand, preparing to send Hanju flying. But Hanju looked dazed. I don't understand why this phantom guarding the way of the sword would place his hand on my forehead. With a slap, everything around Hanju instantly turned pitch black, as if he had gone blind. After a while, Hanju suddenly woke up, opening his eyes, still shaken. He felt a powerful force surrounding him, and his swordsmanship comprehension had greatly improved due to the breakthrough in the way of the sword. A pillar of power broke through the sky and violently stabbed into the ground, causing a violent tremor. Just as Morongchi was kneeling to pay his respects, this power descended, and he couldn't help but cheer, it's exactly as I thought. Morongchi was extremely excited, there must be something I'm looking for on this mountain. Seeing this commotion, the senior must have left seclusion. He continued kowtowing, hoping the senior would notice him. Suddenly, a voice sounded, why is there someone at the foot of the mountain? The voice shocked him. Morongchi raised his head with anticipation. Could it be the god-slaying elder has arrived? But in front of him stood someone who seemed rather comical, Zun Chang'an. As soon as Zun Chang'an saw Morongchi, he was instantly smitten, this young man is too beautiful. However, Morongchi's mood was the complete opposite. He froze, as if turning into a stone sculpture, thinking to himself, so ugly. Amid the blooming flowers and fragrant scenery, an absurd scene unfolded. On one side, Zun Chang'an was grinning so widely that his eyes were nearly invisible. On the other side, Morongchi had a dark expression, and he doubted, what is going on in life? Why do I feel like this guy is inexplicably attracting me? But clearly, I don't like this type. Suddenly, he had an epiphany, wait a minute, could he be the god-slaying elder who brings great opportunities? Immediately, Morongchi bent down, and this sudden movement startled Zun Chang'an, causing him to take a few steps back. What are you doing? Morongchi was kowtowing as he said, please accept me as your disciple, senior. Zun Chang'an was stunned for a moment and didn't react immediately. But then he understood and thought seriously, my cultivation is higher than his, so accepting a disciple isn't difficult. But I still need to ask my master first. So Zun Chang'an asked, what is your name? After Morongchi stated his name, Zun Chang'an directly said, then just continue kneeling here. Morongchi firmly replied, yes. In the cave, Hanju asked in confusion, is someone outside trying to become your disciple? Zun Chang'an quickly responded, is that not okay, master? Hanju calmly answered, it's not that it's not okay. It depends on what you think. Zun Chang'an explained, I feel like we get along quite well. If master agrees, I will take him as my disciple. Hanju began to doubt the sincerity of this statement, get along well? Are you sure it's not just one-sided? In the end, Hanju agreed, then take him in. Bring him to the floating hall tree for cultivation, and remember to watch him carefully. He cannot leave without permission." Hearing this, Zun Chang'an happily responded, "Yes, master." Outside, Morongqi was still kneeling obediently. Following the instructions, he had no idea that he had chosen the wrong master. He thought to himself, "How long do I have to kneel? Senior must be testing my patience." Feeling someone approach, Morongqi lifted his head. The master in front of him was the imposing figure he had always expected, but this master seemed somewhat uncomfortable to be around. Zun Chang'an spoke, "Let's go, follow me up the mountain." Morongqi was secretly happy, thinking, "Great opportunity. Here I come." In front of the gates of the Jade Clear sect, Lu Bumi and Qingxian were whispering, "The fate of the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate depends on this trip." Qingxian made up his mind and walked forward, "Let's go. This time, we must make the Jade Clear sect agree." But Lu Bumi was still worried, what if they still refuse? There was a dangerous gleam in Qingxian's eyes as he smiled slyly, "Refuse? Then we kneel and beg them." That was the true situation. They had been acting dangerous, but in reality, they had no other choice. Qingxian's decisive move to kneel left Hanju unsure of what to do. Even in this pleading posture, Lu Bumi was reluctant, muttering, "The Jade Clear sect is so large, the sect leader's words don't carry weight. Only his words count." But Qingxian, with great awareness, said, "Don't say that. It's already lucky that he's willing to meet us." Suddenly, Hanju spoke, startling both of them, "I hate being disturbed during cultivation. If you don't give me a reasonable explanation, things will get ugly." As he spoke these threatening words, Hanju's expression twisted in a terrifying way, resembling a ghostly demon. This frightened Lu Bumi and Qingxian to the core. Is this aura from someone in the core formation realm? This pressure is even stronger than several of our sect's guest elders. Feeling the oppressive aura, another person also kneeled down. "I am Lu Bumi, the sect master of the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate." Lu Bumi forced himself to suppress his fear and raised his head, sincerely saying, "I came to see Senior this time with the hope of having the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate join the Jade Clear sect. I hope Senior will help us." These two people were also very sincere, so Hanju agreed, "But if you join the Jade Clear sect, there must be no second thoughts. After your sect dissolves, you must join the Jade Clear sect. Do you understand?" Upon hearing this, Lu Bumi and Dongfeng Xian were ecstatic. Hanju extended his hand and performed a sealing spell, saying seriously, "I have already left a mark inside you. It will not affect your cultivation." The sealing spell released a powerful force, which entered Lu Bumi and Dongfeng Xian's bodies in turn. Hanju warned, "But if you harbor any thoughts of rebellion, you know the consequences, right?" Both of them responded in unison, "We are determined to be loyal to the Jade Clear sect." Afterward, Hanju suddenly turned and returned to his cave, leaving behind a word of approval, "Not bad. For specific matters, find Li Qingzi later." This decisive action left Dongfeng Xian and Lu Bumi confused. Is it done like this? Not letting the opportunity slip, Lu Bumi quickly revealed the real reason for his visit. "Senior, please wait. The Blood Flame Heavenly Gate is being harassed by the Wuxiang sect, and our treasures and disciples are still in the Great Way. We cannot come to the Jade Clear sect. We hope Senior will lend us a hand." The name Wuxiang sect immediately caught Hanju's attention, and he stopped in his tracks. After stopping, he said, "It's fine. You can disperse for now, I will intervene." After saying this, Hanju headed straight inside, leaving the two of them outside, kneeling in gratitude. As he left, he recalled, according to the information, the strongest in the Wuxiang sect seems to be the enlightened old monster. If that's the case, as long as the enlightened old monster remains injured, the Wuxiang sect will not dare to act recklessly. The Jade Clear sect will also avoid direct confrontation with the Wuxiang sect. Hanju walked to the ancient book. "Previously, the issue with my wife has been completely erased. From now on, I will fight my enemies solely relying on my own strength. The curses in this book will all curse me with full force." Meanwhile, on the other side, violent coughing and blood-spitting sounds continuously echoed. Seeing his master suffering from coughing and rolling around in Dongfeng Xian's residence, Dongfeng Xian panicked. "Master, are you all right?" The enlightened old monster's eyes rolled to the extreme, filled with anger, but he could only grit his teeth and say, "Who is trying to harm me?" Suddenly, a subordinate outside reported frontline news. "The Blood Flame Heavenly Gate has submitted to the Jade Clear Sect's Great Yen. Should we continue the attack?" Upon hearing the Jade Clear Sect, the enlightened old monster felt this was a threat, and he decided, "Stop the war, let's negotiate." Dongfeng Xian immediately retorted, "What? Is it over just like this? If word gets out, others will think our Wuxiang sect is afraid of the Jade Clear Sect." But the enlightened old monster said, "Fighting two sects at the same time, even the Wuxiang sect would find it very difficult." As if realizing something, the enlightened old monster's eyes turned red with anger, and he roared, "Wait a minute. The Jade Clear Sect?" The image of Xing Hongchuan appeared, and the enlightened old monster suddenly realized, that woman must have started the curse. This time, I was cursed to be heavily injured. Coincidentally, the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate and the Jade Clear Sect are negotiating. Dongfeng Xian confidently said, "I've heard that the strongest in the Jade Clear Sect is only at the core formation stage. Master, don't worry, I will capture Lu Bumi during the expedition." He immediately turned to prepare to act, but was stopped by the voice of the enlightened old monster. "You can't go." He continued, "This matter is somewhat suspicious. The trials of your heavenly immortal palace are about to begin. You must not cause trouble anymore. The war with the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate has been going on for years. It's time to end it. The reputation of the Wuxiang sect has been established, and there is no need to eliminate them completely." This statement left Dongfeng Xian unwilling, but he could only obey. The enlightened old monster then said, "I have decided. We will no longer attack the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate." Now, Dongfeng Xian could only clench his fists in agreement. Meanwhile, on Morongqi's side, after a week of cultivation, he finally realized that his master was not the god-slaying elder. When Duan Chang'an was introducing his senior sister, great-grandmother, and relatives from the core formation realm, Morongqi was shocked and realized, "You're not the god-slaying elder?" Upon hearing this question, Zun Chang'an calmly replied, "When did I ever say I am the god-slaying elder?" This misunderstanding was undoubtedly a mental shock for Morongqi. After the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate allied with the Jade Clear Sect, the Wuxiang sect temporarily halted its attack plans. Now, the Jade Clear Sect has continuously grown stronger. This led to more and more loose cultivators and commoners coming to seek help, with Li Qingzi acting as Hanju's representative. Since then, the Great Yen Kingdom has been peaceful every day, and this lasted for 10 years. On the cliff walls, there were always inscriptions of wisdom: "Cultivate and endure for a while, the sky is vast and the earth is wide." Suddenly, the system displayed, "In this life, you have lived for 400 years. You have two choices. One is to leave seclusion and prove your strength, possibly gaining a luck beast or a rare treasure. The second is to continue seclusion, possibly gaining a spiritual treasure." Facing the 400 burning candles, Hanju made his wish, "For my 400th birthday, I choose the second option." The system notified, "You have chosen to continue seclusion. Congratulations, you have gained a spiritual treasure, Heavenly Spirit Silver Ring, which has defensive properties and can isolate divine sense and defend against soul attacks." Hanju was very satisfied with this birthday gift. He put it on, and the spiritual treasure immediately radiated golden spiritual energy. Hanju happily said, "Another defensive spiritual treasure, truly delightful." Gong Qingtian's voice made him put away his playful demeanor and return to a serious attitude. Within the Jade Clear Sect's territory, a firm voice rang out, "I have come to challenge the Jade Clear Sect's combat techniques, regardless of life or death." Gong Qingtian flew in the air, arrogantly provoking, "Who in the Jade Clear Sect dares to fight me?" Hanju checked the information list, slightly hesitant. "The one challenging the sect is a Huangji Hao?" The system displayed Gong Qingtian's information, second level of the core formation stage, arrogant. Wants to become the world's #1 great cultivator, has challenged everywhere and never failed. Thinking about his status as a disciple of the heavenly immortal palace, Hanju became alert. I have heard of the heavenly immortal palace, but this is the first time encountering someone from there. He should be an interesting opponent. The Jade Clear sect's defensive barrier immediately activated, followed by a loud cry, simulating the start of the battle. A solid barrier formed around the Jade Clear sect, and upon seeing this, Gong Qingtian began to taunt, "What's this? The Jade Clear sect has subdued the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate, but no one dares to fight me? Truly disappointing." Still no response, so he offered, "I bid 1,000,000 high-quality spirit stones." He continued shouting, "Is 1,000,000 high-quality spirit stones not enough? I'll add a spiritual treasure." The various sects of the Jade Clear sect were also shocked by his generous offer. Seeing no effect, Gong Qingtian angrily shouted, "No way. Are the people of the Jade Clear sect all cowards? No one dares to speak?" Li Qingzi, who was studying precious books, was disturbed by Gong Qingtian's shouting, "People of the Jade Clear sect, come out. You have the guts to open a sect but not to accept a challenge?" Li Qingzi finally couldn't take it anymore, put down his bag, and complained, "Why haven't Elder Han and Elder Xiao made a move yet? I'm in seclusion, can't it be quiet?" Someone beside him was deciding whether to go or wait for Elder Han to handle it, and unexpectedly, the last petal fell on the option to go. So, Xiao Han could only pretend not to care and say, "Seems like I miscounted, let me count again." As Li Qingzi was reaching the climax of his research, Xiao Han was sniffing the flowers. Upon hearing this question, Zun Chang'an responded, "When did I ever say I was the god-slaying elder?" This kind of muddled misunderstanding was truly a mental shock for Morong Qi. After the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate allied with the Jade Clear sect, the Wuxiang sect temporarily paused its attack plans. Now, the Jade Clear sect has continuously grown stronger. This led to more and more loose cultivators and commoners coming to seek help, with Li Qingzi acting as Hanju's representative. Since then, Great Yen spent a peaceful 10 years. On the cliffs, there were always inscriptions of wisdom, "Cultivate and endure for a while, the sky is vast and the sea is wide." The system displayed, "In this life, you have lived for 400 years. You have two choices. One is to leave seclusion and prove your strength, possibly gaining a divine beast's luck or a rare treasure. The second is to continue seclusion, potentially gaining a spiritual treasure." Standing before a birthday cake with 400 lit candles, Hanju made his wish, "For my 400th birthday, I'll choose the second one." The system notified, "You have chosen to continue seclusion. Congratulations, you have gained a spiritual treasure, Heavenly Spirit Silver Ring, which has defensive properties and can isolate divine sense and defend against soul attacks." Hanju was very satisfied with this birthday gift. He put it on, and the spiritual treasure immediately radiated golden spiritual energy. Hanju excitedly said, "Another defensive spiritual treasure, truly delightful." Wei Lingtian's noise made him put away his humorous expression and return to a serious demeanor. Within the Jade Clear sect's territory, a loud shout rang out, "I have come to challenge the Jade Clear sect's combat techniques, regardless of life or death." Wei Lingtian flew in the air, arrogantly provoking, "Who in the Jade Clear sect dares to fight me?" Hanju checked the information list, feeling a bit hesitant. The one challenging the sect is actually Huang Jihao? The system displayed Wei Lingtian's information, second level of the core formation stage, arrogant, wants to become the #1 great cultivator in the world, challenges everywhere, and has never lost. Thinking about his status as a disciple of the heavenly immortal palace, Hanju became alert. "I've heard of the heavenly immortal palace for a long time, and today I finally meet someone from there. He should be an interesting opponent." The Jade Clear sect's defensive barrier immediately activated, followed by a loud shout announcing the start of the battle. A solid barrier formed around the Jade Clear sect, and upon seeing this, Wei Lingtian sneered, "What's this? The Jade Clear sect subdued the Blood Flame Heavenly Gate, but no one dares to fight me? Truly disappointing." Still no response, so he offered, "I bid 1,000,000 high-quality spirit stones." He continued shouting, "Is 1,000,000 spirit stones not enough? I'll add a spiritual treasure." The various sects of the Jade Clear sect were shocked by his generous offer. Seeing no effect, Wei Lingtian angrily shouted, "Are the people of the Jade Clear sect all cowards? No one dares to speak?" Li Qingzi, who was busy studying ancient books, was disturbed by Wei Lingtian's shouting, "People of the Jade Clear sect, come out. You have the guts to open a sect, but not to accept a challenge." Li Qingzi couldn't take it anymore, put down his book, and complained, "Why haven't Elder Han and Elder Shao made a move yet? I'm in seclusion, and it's not like it's this difficult for me." On the other side, someone was picking petals to decide whether to go or wait for Elder Han to handle it. Unexpectedly, the last petal fell on the option to go. So, Xiao Jiao had no choice but to pretend he didn't care and say, "Looks like I miscounted, let me count again." While Li Qingzi was reaching the climax of his research, Xiao Jiao couldn't help but take a deep breath. In fact, although he didn't want to, he had to let them go because Li Kong's 7th layer tribulation realm made Hanju tremble all over. He thought, this person has a good character, strong strength, and is also handsome. So Li Kong asked for his name. Hanju solemnly gave a false name, Guan Yu, courtesy name Yun Chang. Then, Gui Lingtian's figure appeared small and confused, feeling wronged. "Why can't I withstand a single move from Guan Yu?" Li Kong told the truth. "If he doesn't plan to leave your true spirit intact, I can't stop him." Even the dragon's defense was shattered into pieces. Gui Lingtian was surprised. "Someone like my master, at the tribulation realm, can be injured?" Li Kong explained, "It's just a clone, but his swordsmanship is domineering. I can't fully control my main body. This incident serves as a lesson for you. What have you learned?" Hearing his master's reproach, Gui Lingtian felt guilty and stammered, not knowing how to respond. In the end, he could only admit, "I didn't expect there would be so many powerful cultivators besides the heavenly Immortal Palace. Even small sects have hidden experts." Seeing some growth in him, his master became happy. Gui Lingtian quickly regained his composure and excitedly said, "In the future, I want to challenge more sects to understand that there are always people beyond people, and heavens beyond heavens." It seemed like he had realized his mistake, but the boy remained the same, causing Li Kong's face to turn blue with anger. Teaching had no effect, so Li Kong locked him up. "Go back to the heavenly immortal palace, and don't come out for 500 years. Gui Lingtian screamed in refusal, but Li Kong was truly helpless. "Silly boy, who has saved you every time?" The secret transmission of the Jade Clear sect was surrounded by a complex array of formations. Since being captured by Hanju, MISU had been confined in this secret transmission. She had focused solely on cultivation, and her cultivation had now reached the 8th layer of the Golden Core stage. However, MISU still had an obsession with escaping. She wanted to leave here and take revenge for my family. MISU repeatedly hypnotized herself. "What are you waiting for? Your cousin's chance for revenge is still waiting for you to help." In an instant, she regained control of her mind, painfully resisting the evil spirits within her body. "Who are you? Get away. I don't want this. You don't represent me." The battle between the two sides was fierce. MISU's body seemed to be on the verge of exploding as she screamed and desperately tried to push the vengeful spirits out of her body. Overusing her power severely injured MISU, causing her to continuously vomit blood. After a great deal of torment, she finally collapsed, kneeling and vomiting. "I'm practicing my family's ancestral technique. Why is it cultivating demonic energy?" MISU couldn't determine the situation earlier. Was that a manifestation of my inner demon? It doesn't seem like it. She even claimed to be the family head. Could it be that my family was truly part of the demon sect? The more she thought about it, the more MISU realized, it seems like she was implying a legacy. But should I really start cultivating this technique again? She looked up at the sky and pondered, if I start cultivating again, I don't know how long it will take. It was already difficult to catch up with Hanju, and if I have to start over. I was the first to break through to foundation establishment before him. Hanju's figure continued to advance, appearing in MISU's mind. This scene made her heart ache, but now, MISU could no longer hold on. Eventually, tears of shame poured down her face. Do I still have a chance? In another scene, the valley was narrow, and only a portion of sunlight could be seen. Su Qi was also desperately cultivating. His explosive power seemed to burn him out. In his heart, Su Qi silently muttered, I'm sorry, master. To survive, I have no choice but to abandon the original cultivation method. Su Qi had to start practicing the magic skills taught by the demon lord again, with the surrounding energy fluctuations emitting a dark aura. However, unexpectedly, after changing his cultivation method, his cultivation level greatly improved. The demon lord sat nearby supervising, also surprised at how well Su Qi adapted to the magic skills. I can't believe a human can do this. It's really mind-boggling. But he was also a bit jealous. What has happened recently? Has his cultivation reached a bottleneck? When I was cultivating,